Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Blue Dragon 5 here.
And Rohith Dark.
It's time yet again to explore the vast catalog and find out what's a must or a bust on Disney Plus. And tonight, we're talking your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Season 1. We're doing a Spoilercast now. We're talking about all the episodes. We're going to break them down. We'll wait on this one because the release schedule was a little overwhelming if we did try to cover it week to week. So here we are.
In the friendly neighborhood.
Yeah. So overall, Rohit, what did you think of the show?
I think overall it's a really well done Spider-Man animated show. In terms of the previews and the lead up to it, I was a little skeptical and hesitant of how this was to perform. But I think the show takes a lot of elements from all aspects of Spidey mythos, whether it be the comics, movies, animation, games, and makes its own thing that is still respectful to the spirit and heart of the Spider-Man franchise. And I think it does a lot of interesting twists and turns that makes it worthwhile and exciting for people that have followed Spider-Man, from the 60s onward. So, and the fact that there's now greenlit seasons 2 and 3, and where the show started from the beginning of season 1 to the end, I'm really excited and really interested to see the payoff for things that have been seeded and have been slowly developing over the course of the season.
Yeah, so I like the show. I was, I think in general we were overdue for a new Spider-Man cartoon. I mean, post Spider-Verse and No Way Home. I think there was definitely the time for it. I was very trepidatious when this was announced. Initially, when it was announced, it was like, okay, we're doing a Spider-Man show that's kind of connected to the MCU. I was like, okay, yes, I'm so on board for this because this is the kind of stuff that we, let's. We're very hamstrung with Spider-Man in the MCU in the sense of pretty much we only get what's with those movies, and we can't really have pop up anywhere else aside from obviously the Avengers films. The point being, where Spider-Man's on a very short leash, like full on, we have our MCU Spider-Man, we can only do so much with them beyond all the other stuff that's going on with Spider-Man. So I was very much for fleshing out what we have gotten with Homecoming. Then I found out, okay, this is actually set kind of an alternative multiverse setting. So I was a little trepidatious over. I was like, oh man, we can't just have nice things. We can't just build from what we have. But I tell you, Leo Romero's art style and this take on a lot of the buzz around Norman Osborn, it progressively it sold me more and more, and I was getting hyped for it. Admittedly, the jersey look on Spider-Man, it kind of threw me a bit, but then I realized, well, again, they're not just. Again, that's more in line with the multiverse thing, where we don't want it to look exactly like kind of the proto Spider-Man look from from Homecoming, and the very brief tease from Civil War, etc. They want to look verbatim like that to kind of highlight differences. So yeah, I figured the show itself would sell me on it, but that was yet another oh boy, I don't know. Anyway, so I feel for this show, a lot of people are looking at Spider-Man and just forcing their worldview onto whatever the result is. I think there was a lot of judgment on this show, and especially in kind of the before its release and during the release, there's some doomsaying going on. But I'd love to put it this way: pure and simple, as a Spider-Man show, I found this very enjoyable, and I want to. At the end of the day, with Spider-Man show in general, and with this, I think a good faith attempt. I think there was a solid, legit attempt at a story for this versus the usual thing that Disney, again, kind of a Disney Marvel thing we've gotten before, kind of let's get Marvel Animation on board and do stuff that kind of ties into the grander picture. We've seen cash-ins with the Disney kind of the Disney animated kind of Marvel shows before, again and again. We've seen, especially with Spider-Man, we've had Ultimate Spider-Man's kind of on a tightrope. That one. There was an attempt there. We got Dini involved, and then things kind of fell off. And then after that, we get like Marvel's Spider-Man, which was very much just like, like I don't even know if it's called Marvel's. We had some. That's the thing, because we had like I think it was Ultimate Spider-Man, and then we had Marvel Spider-Man. Marvel Spider-Man was just very. That was a cash grab Spider-Man. That was like, you know, we're just putting out. We need to capitalize on Spider-Man despite us not being able to kind of do exactly what we want with it. And nothing ever, touched nothing in general, even with this show's success. Nothing's ever touching Spectacular '90s Spider-Man, specifically Spectacular. Nothing's touching Spectacular. We know this going into this, but again, I think there's a lot of respect for a good faith attempt at, in their minds, another Spectacular Spider-Man. I think they're going at it very earnestly. Like, we want to do a really good Spider-Man show that actually, we kind of we're telling a grander story, and if we're lucky, we get more seasons, which so far they are.
Mm-hmm.
And and basically kind of capitalizing on the missed opportunities of the MCU Spider-Man, the stuff that we weren't really able to do. Or, and if we got another bite at the apple and we weren't kind of hamstrung by, okay, certain things are done and certain things are off the table, what can we do? So I think they kind of took that situation. I think they delivered the best story they could, and I think it was really good. And I was really sold on it. I was invested on it. I kind of saw as the show went on, people progressively got more and more invested in it as it kind of got to the finish. So I think there was a win. I think this is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I guess from here, let me see. Any comments we should bring up before we just kind of lump it into the. Well, we have Kogias Anime Fan just kind of throwing some poster critiques at us here. See that? I gotta remember Harry Osborn ever going to Peter Parker's schools. Why is he in the bus?
It's just a poster code, Diaz. Don't think too much into it.
We got to put him in there somewhere, and he goes to school, so Anyway.
Well, homeschool. Remember, he's got private tutors. So
I know that's why he's not there. I'm saying that's what the poster's logic is, right? Anyway, I think the rest of this we can kind of lump into the conversations. Folks, again, we're going to go through the episodes and kind of talk the highlights and kind of the big kind of talking points per the episodes. We're going to try not to make it 3 hours, but we're going to do our darndest. Anyway, episode 1. Yeah, it could be a train. Absolutely. Could be a train. Could be a yellow train. Okay, Amazing Fantasy. Also, we have pretty solid titles on this show. I just want to shout that out too. Amazing Fantasy, clearly first appearance of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So we set the tone of the multiverse in kind of the alternative setting in episode 1. An alternative MCU that basically allows for a Spider-Man show, and we have the. I think it's like again, like I said, mainline expectation was kind of a prequel to Civil War, and it's kind of what the episode kind of starts as, and then we take a major turn when Doctor Strange shows up and he's fighting a symbiote creature.
Yep. And what was really cool about it was that when Doctor Strange comes in, he's like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be here," which is a line that, if one were to think about it in too much detail, it's like, "Oh, this was kind of weird," and it pays off at the very end. So it's really interesting to see this sort of, like, they're doing the origin, but it's different enough that it can be satisfactory as an origin story for Peter Parker, which I would not expect to be the case for such a show like this, especially in the previews leading up to it. Yeah, no, so that's another change that's notable as well.
Yeah, we actually talk about Uncle Ben this time. We even show him. God forbid. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, the destruction of Midtown High. That was like again. I was really impressed with like the curveballs they threw at us, and again, it's like that great kind of like catch-all. Like, well, we can go in different directions here. So again, I appreciate that it's giving us. It's a tricky tightrope walk. Of like giving you what you want, but by the same token, kind of like we're bumping up against a little.
Yeah, and this show, like the people behind it, are very much big Spider-Man fans, and I think so. This creature, it's like labeled as a symbiotic alien or whatever. I think that creature showed up, or is very similar to a creature that showed up in JMS's run. And I think that creature wasn't like related to symbiotes, but I think that's the thing I appreciate about the show is that it just takes bits and pieces throughout all Spider-Man media and kind of melds it together to something new and interesting.
Yeah, like the art again. Like I said, I really do love the art style because I love the art style. Is this really cool fusion of it's kind of three things. It's there's a lot of Ditko in there, but the line work and just kind of the way there's a lot of It's kind of a fusion of Ditko and Romita. We have a lot of Ditko love here going on between just basically how Spider Man's designed, how he looks in terms of like the outfit, Peter Parker specifically, and
The Doctor Strange of it all.
exactly the Doctor Strange was a major a lot of Ditko love just right off the bat with like Doctor Strange, including Doctor Strange with the awesome like leopard print gloves, which are fantastic, and I love every time that we give him gloves, which you only did like one time in the Marvel movies, but it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the yeah, so we're able to do stuff like that. But again, there's a lot of Romita charm. Of course, Romita for me, definitive Spider-Man artist. Like that is Spider-Man right there. Nothing against Ditko. Again, Ditko is obviously it's very important, but I'm saying Romita is like the best of both worlds because he transitioned from Ditko to his own style. And of course, Romita Senior, he had the luxury of having all the iconic moments, like like Mary Jane, and get Mary.
No, not just the iconic moments, but the things that define Spider-Man as a property is like melodrama,
Spider-Man No More.
Yeah, well, just
Kingpin.
but just in terms of the tone and types of stories that are told outside of the superhero like aspects of Spider-Man, that all comes from Romita, and Romita Senior being like a romance comics veteran, he took all of his experience and pushed Spider-Man that was revolutionary at the time with just Lee Ditko to even further extent with like the whole soap opera elements that people like deride at some points, but that's what makes Spider-Man such a great character in serial fiction.
Isn't that one of the coolest things that we took the era of comics that no one really cared about and we found a way to kind of salvage it and make it the thing that everyone cares about with characters? We need for the time we had like the romance and the Western comics, and through the history of comics and superheroes, we found a way to retrofit those things into things that mattered in the narrative.
I mean, part of it is just that's just kind of art in itself, right? Think of how much influences George Lucas took to make Star Wars what it is. And I think that's just reflective of the innovation for both Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita Sr. And that's why Spider-Man is the character that is so popular around the world.
They kind of take the piggyback off Code Geass here. It says all the theme songs exactly what I'm wanting from a Spider-Man theme song. So with that and the art style, again, we're taking a remix. We're kind of doing a remix of classic Spider-Man stuff. A blending of all things through Spider-Man's history, and we're also kind of putting in kind of the modern era that we've been getting with Spider-Man just in general. So, we kind of take the classic Spider-Man theme song, and then we can add something a little more street level to it. And we've kind of again, same thing with the art style, where again it's like kind of let's take kind of the 60s standard for Spider-Man, but kind of fuse it in with the modern day, which is again I think one of the reasons Fantastic Four might be really successful, because people love looking back at the 60s aesthetic.
Yeah, I think what's really important about this theme song is that if you really look at all the theme songs for all the Spider-Man cartoons over time, you're kind of if anything getting like a microcosm of musical history, specifically what genres were really prominent. For the you had the 60s, you had the classic, Does a Spider Can, and in the 90s show, you have like this like electric rock, heart, and then the 2000s,
we have radioactive spider blood.
Yeah, in 2009, the Spectacular Spider-Man is more like alt rock kind of a deal. And then for this, because of the sort of the taste of what's popular in music nowadays with the hip hop and rap and all that stuff, like the themes are more hip hop oriented. And that I think is that's reflective of the spirit of the show, is that what if Spider-Man has done in modern day? And I think that approach is what made shows like Spectacular Spider-Man work, and this show works. It's like, hey, if this character exists as a teenager, what are things that are relevant to teenagers now?
Absolutely. So we have the opening fight with Doctor Strange here, and we have so Midtown High on the start of the semester gets destroyed. So Peter Parker and his friends have to go to Bales High, which again, left turn I didn't see coming at all. So his bestie is Nico Minari. And I recognized her from Runaways. I watched the Runaways, as did you, right?
No,
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Point being, I recognized. Yeah.
I read the first volume of the Runaways by Brian K. Vaughan. So
Okay. Well, either way, the point being, we're somewhat familiar with the Runaways. You more so probably with the comics lore. I mean, I remember reading
and
the first issue of Runaways.
and Midnight Suns.
Well, there you go. Point being, Nico's got a fan base.
Mhm.
It's cool to see Nico, but I got to admit, I heard this somewhere, and it was the first thought I had when I saw her pop up, and it was confirmed once I looked into it. It was like, it really would have been so cool if we could have had Jessica Jones be the friend.
I don't know if that would
I
work.
mean, it's a multiverse. We can get away with it here, though.
No, but like the thing is, it's like, well, what is it that we would have with Jessica Jones that we couldn't have had with Nico? Because I feel like Jessica Jones would just do the same
Potential love interest.
I mean,
Or interestingly, the love interest that becomes the platonic friend. Or, I mean, look, I'm not saying we do it verbatim, but there is a chance. We have the friend who gets a little sidelined by Peter. The consequence of this is, maybe she goes down a path that puts her on the makes her a target of the Purple Man. I'm just saying, maybe in a different way, mind you, a different way, but
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of baggage for Jessica Jones as a character that I don't think the show would be like with how far the show goes, which I'm really surprised. I don't know if it could go as far enough to like do the stuff that to do like justice for Jessica Jones' character, right? Because when she gets involved with the Purple Man of it all, I don't know if the show could be able to touch on stuff like that in a really sensitive.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. It would have been kind of interesting though. But even then, even if we just gonna, I don't know.
I don't know. I think because the thing is like there's really not much media of Jessica Jones as a teenager. Like
That's what I mean. That was always one of the coolest things. Retroactively, we put her in, in the '60s era, essentially of, we put her in Peter Parker's high school years, and it was like this really great cross nexus of because of him going through the spider bite. That's what kind of put the rift in him.
I don't know. I feel like Nika Minoru like is a character that people like, and I think she has something.
Yeah.
I think her character archetype being sort of the grunge emo kid that like challenges authority and all that stuff. That I think works for her because she's always like that from the jump in the comics and in other media. Jessica Jones, she isn't like that as a teenager. She only is like that after, not even after her accident, but like after her years as a young adult being a superhero and then being cynical and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
it was just kind of you're taking sort of the retrofit and then putting it here. And I think it would mirror too much with not mirror exactly 101, but I think it would kind of it would echo too much of what was done with Lonnie.
I get. Look, I want to be clear. I'm not dissatisfied that we have Nico. I'm just saying, learning that Jessica Jones was on the table and knowing like the fun deep cut of that, and the fact that we have other, kind of Jessica Jones adjacent characters in this show. I don't know. It kind of. Plus, we're in Harlem. We have other characters that connect. I don't know. There's fun, kind of a Netflix Marvel Heroes vibe that we had going on.
I think with Nico, with the fact that she's in the mystic realm of things,
yeah,
more room to kind of maybe you could bring in the other Runaways, or maybe you could bring in characters like Magic or Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider or stuff like that. And I think like because with what she has, like she's I mean, I will cover this in later episodes, but there is this big secret of hers that she's keeping from Peter. And when she finds out about Peter's secret, that complicates your feelings about it. And I don't know. I feel like you would miss out on that if you just have just Jessica Jones. Like,
I guess.
Yeah, and I think part of it, and I think this is something that I don't think it's wrong to point it out, but when you look at 2009 with Spectacular Spider-Man and this show is very intentionally wanting to reflect the diversity of teenagers in New York, specifically in Queens, and having just like one white friend, and then I think this show is very intentional, wanting to have as broad of a diverse student body, and having both Nico, Pearl, and Lonnie. I think it's just more reflective of reality. Not to say that Jessica Jones couldn't exist in such a reality, but I think with the characters you have there's interesting story paths that are hinted or potentially teased that could be interesting to play out. Whereas I feel like Jessica Jones, her story can only really work if we focus on her as a main character. and then see her as an adult. Whereas I know there's much mileage out of Jessica Jones as a teenager.
Right. Okay, so just to bridge off of that, just to kind of with some of our other characters, I think overall going into the show, there's a lot of fear, and I think for before like we revealed who certain characters were, a lot of people there's a lot of speculation, a lot of people were worried. We're just kind of overall the fear was like we're just kind of changing supporting cast for the heck of it, just to be different. When I view what we ultimately did as we reinvented basically we were reinventing classic Spider-Man archetypes and bridging in and doing it via other characters, but still kind of representing those archetypes. For example, Lonnie Lincoln was a really good idea. I was really impressed. I had no idea he was going to be Lonnie Lincoln until like the show happened. I was like really impressed by that because it's basically a combination of it ultimately feels kind of a combination of like archetypally. Like we took Flash Thompson, Rand Robertson, which we kind of had in the spectacular. He felt initially when I saw his character, I really thought he was going to be Rand Robinson. Rand Robinson. Sorry, I keep
Randy.
I know. Yes, Randy Robertson from Spectacular, and then also Harry Osborn. A little bit of Harry Osborn there. Which clear, I know we have Harry Osborn. I'm just saying, and just kind of like the idea of the friend who kind of like goes through the kind of goes to the dark side there. And ultimately, kind of the way we kind of went about it is similar. It's kind of like a Harvey Dent story, of like the doomed, kind of like Harvey Dent path of, he's kind of doomed for failure in a sense. He's doomed to kind of go to the dark side, and you're kind of. I love how we're rooting for him not to go to that place. I think they were very successful in what they're doing with Lonnie Lincoln. Lonnie Lincoln, many a time we don't really develop that character a lot. Like we have his backstory and we just kind of have it to the side in a pocket there, but rarely does Tombstone really get like a sympathetic or like a really when we evaluate his circumstances. And like the most I ever think about that is 90s Spider-Man where you have like the really good Tombstone episode. With him and Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's always the alliteration.
No, I get it. No, I think it's really interesting to have Tombstone be like made into a teenager and go on this arc. Because I also think to like Hobby Brown for Prowler or like even Rocket Racer. Like Rocket Racer was like just a poor black kid that had to do crime to make ends meet. And in this, it's like his family's struggling. But it's not really financial. It's more personal, and I really appreciate that Lonnie, like from the jump, is just like he's a popular guy in school, but
he's the likable romantic rival. But there's no ill will at all. Which that I'm so impressed how they did that.
And you understand why he makes the decision he does.
Yeah,
because if he doesn't do it, like it would reflect badly on him that he's not a caring brother to sacrifice his own well-being for his younger
it's
brother.
A very complicated situation that he's found himself in. I think that represents something that we always like so many times. I think people just kind of like, oh, he's wanting the gang life, or oh, it was inevitable, or it was a bad seed, or oh, he just he made an impulsive decision. Well, no, he gave up something that mattered to him, and he was in a position he had to do it for the sake of his family, and it's not easy to get out of. And that was really it's not always willy-nilly.
Well, I think it's more specifically like he gets into it for a good reason. He stays in the gang life because he's getting the adulation and the feeling of belonging somewhere. Which is not like he didn't belong in high school and all that stuff. I think
he had expectation thrust upon him in high school, and that was a lot of pressure for him.
Yeah, and I think there's something interesting to be said about if Lonnie like grew up in an environment where he wasn't expected to like make it all the way for his family that's struggling to make things against me. Would he been in the position to have A, join a gang, and B, stayed in a gang?
I mean, I like that they don't spoon feed it to you, but I like that there is kind of there's a bit of a commentary on kind of the pressures of black exceptionalism with Lonnie Lincoln. Like you can be the best of us. You're moving on. Essentially, he was going to be a horrible like way to put it, but he's moving on up. Well,
it's sort of the thing where it's like he can be good doing well at school and all that. That doesn't change his material circumstances, at least not for the time being. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing where, hey, do well in school, you'll make it in life, and it's like, well, what do you do when life is not going well right now, and you have to be?
Mm-hmm.
What's your responsibility, and to help out your family if they're in a dire situation?
Like he's such a good kid. Like he's like he's talking to the shop teacher and trying like see if what's wrong with the car, like stuff like that. You know.
Yeah, and then, but because of how things ended up with his brother Andre, he has to help out because he's Lonnie. But then once he's stuck, he just kind of slowly gets corrupted. And I appreciate that this is not like, oh, I like being in charge or I like taking control. He like Lonnie is trying to make his own way, and I think with where the season ends, he's there's sort of an honorable criminal to my like vibe.
That's where I really think we're going with, and that's the vibe I get by the end. But again, we're jumping ahead a little with Lonnie.
Sure, yeah.
The point being, so okay, point we have a supporting cast here. We very interesting. Pearl. We have her as the love interest. I like the babysitter angle is kind of a funny dilemma for Peter to have there, and that's it caused him to hesitate enough that he lost the opportunity to ask her out. So that's it's the Parker luck for you. I know it sounds like a transition point, but we're almost there. We're almost there.
Mhm.
The evolve. To piggyback off the Lion Lincoln thing, so I love with a show called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I love that we are very street level. We are very much seeing how he takes care of the neighborhood, and we're seeing the realistic circumstances of his kind of his neighbors essentially. And I love that this is a Spider-Man who saves people, which is always prerogative number one, I think, for any superhero story that we tell. We got to see him save people, and we got to care about him saving people. And I love like the moment where he abdicates for like the woman who was down on her luck who stole from the pizza place.
For that moment, I thought like the guy was going to be convinced, or Spider was going to convince him to like hire her because there was
I
like
promise you, everyone. I mean, everyone. Like every time I've seen clips of that, everyone in the comments is saying, "Why didn't he?" We expected him to hire her.
I guess the fact that he stole from his place, it might
No, it's the
not.
fact there's like a help wanted sign in the door. That's why everyone thought that, right?
No, but realistically, I don't know if you want to hire someone that just robbed your store.
You know what I really think? I think like because we're approved for like 2 more seasons. I think we're going to see her working at that place, the show. Like that Spider-Man's down his luck, saying, he did affect some good change. Like maybe she did eventually get a job there.
No, it'd be very much in line with like how in Spectacular Spider-Man, I think like Spider-Man saves this like one man and one woman, and then later on we see them as a couple. So like that would be cool for like side character for like background characters to kind of have like little arcs on the side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. All right, let's see. So the evolving costume of Spider-Man. This is a cool idea. And again, like I said, we did the jersey be different, so it's not like literally like, but again, it's kind of getting you in the. It feels like what we did in the MCU, but kind of with a different look. I admit, it's not as terrible looking as the people in universe in the show say. Oh man, he's got terrible. It's not that bad. It's not like that bad. They're gonna,
I mean, compared to like the other superheroes in the world, it's probably not the best, right?
Well, that's true, but I mean, still, like, oh man, that's a whack costume. Like, really? Is it that? It's just, it's basically just him wearing it. Look, I'm with you. I'm with you in universe characters or like knockoffs of the Enforcers, whoever that street gang is. I, you know, it's like, yes, I know the jerseys feels a little lazy, and the hoodie at least looked more like a costume. I get it,
Yeah.
but still. Anyway, I do love the prototype on the web shooters. That was my favorite part of this reimagining of the costume. I got to be honest. I was convinced like we were going to see like that get snagged on something and like it stopped working, but we never did that. I mean, it probably never will. Anyway, let's see. Okay, the point being, by the end of episode 1 here, he's we have our Civil War link up, which is such a great subversion. We're playing like the Left Hand song, and he's like walking in the apartment. He kind of found like a DVD player or something in the trash, and Norman Osborn. That brings us to episode 2, the Parker Luck.
Yeah, Coleman Domingo as Norm Osborn is one of the best casting decisions in animation. Like he just brings us all.
When I saw Norman Osborn's design, I was like, oh my! It was like I could have had a V8 moment. I never imagined. I stupidly never thought if we cast Norman Osborn as a black man, we could get the iconic hairstyle and have it make complete and total sense. And we did. It was such a good idea.
Yeah, and I really like him having the green suit just kind of
Yes.
really well.
But yes, I gotta be honest. Colin Domingo, I was very unfamiliar with Domingo. I think I might have seen him here and there and something, but I heard he was cast in the biopic for Nat King Cole. And hearing his voice, I can absolutely see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking very forward to it. But yeah, so Colin Domingo, Norman Osborn, he's awesome. The mentor, the green suit, the hair, it all came together, and the idea that at least what we're kind of seeing all the publicity stuff is a guy who turned his luck around through hard work. Um, you know, again, it's kind of like it's between Norman Osborn's success and ultimately kind of like we have like moment. This is the episode where we have like Lion Lincoln like walking home, and we kind of like we have like moments of just moments of genuinely addressing like the black experience. Like he's walking home. There's a little trepidation when the cop car shows up. There's crime everywhere he hears in the neighborhood. By the end of the show, it feels like when I know I'm jumping ahead, so I don't have to worry about it later. Lion Lincoln when he gets the web, email like the offer to join web, I feel like that's his Norman Osborn moment. It feels like that's his chance. I think what we're saying with Lion Link is that he has the potential to end up like Tombstone in Spectacular Spider-Man potentially.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that.
Because we see like Norman Osborn, the football parallels with Norman Osborn. He's tossing that football, and I don't. Lion Lincoln is a football player, so that's why I'm making the link between Lincoln and Norman Osborn. Anyway, so I guess the hat trick with Norman Osborn is that there's an expectation of villainy, but again, just that hat trick of we like Peter Parker, much like Peter Parker, we like Norman Osborn. He's very he's very above board, but there's a little bit of menace. There's a little bit of like, can I trust this person? So far, we can, but like as we go forward, we're seeing things unravel with him. We're seeing there's a shady side. He is a businessman after all.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's kind of like the most interesting era of Norman Osborn was Thunderbolts. Norman Osborn, one could argue, right? Where was Norman Osborn outside of the Goblin costume? We got to see the menace of like kind of the Lex Luthor side of Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting. I don't mean like literally like is the Goblin costume better than obviously the Goblin costume's cool, but it's still it's just it's the idea of, like we see what other stuff we can do with Norman Osborn.
Yep.
But yeah, this is cool, and again, it's the shame of like if only we had thought to do this, before we did, No Way Home, in which we could have had a functioning Norman Osborn in the MCU, and then we could have done the alternative Norman Osborn, who actually is in the Goblin costume, and but say la vie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so gets the internship, an actual internship this time. He's got an internship at Oscorp, and we meet some familiar faces.
Yeah, I think the people picked as his fellow interns are really interesting picks. Having Amadeus show, an OC, and Asha, and then Janine McCall, who I forgot she was a character in the Initiative comics called Finesse. And I was like, oh, like this show really kind of goes. It's not just people really into Spider-Man. It's also people who are into Marvel as a whole.
Yeah,
I think this is very much in display with the picks and the references throughout the rest of the show.
Yeah. We had we also had Dr. Whitman, which I don't know if it's going to be a Deb Whitman foreshadow or it's just like we're using the name. It could just be the latter, but fingers crossed. I'd like there maybe be a review if we ever soften Dr. Whitman. Maybe he's got a daughter. I don't know.
Well, no, Bentley Whitman is the wizard.
Oh, crap! You're right.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry about that, but still, the fact there's a Deb Whitman.
Also, the spelling is different.
No, you're right. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, forget what I said. The Deb Whitman said to us.
Although maybe maybe the show could pull a spectacular and connect two characters that don't seem related. Like in spectacular, like Silvio Manfredi is like the father of Silver Sable.
Yeah.
So maybe Deborah Whitman could be the daughter of this Bentley Whitman.
Yeah. I don't know. I like showing Deb Whitman some love because she's kind of a neat character, not a big character, not an important character, just kind of neat. We get Carla Connors. So this is kind of again, this is interesting. I do like softening. Now I'm not saying Dr. Connors was all, and Dr. Connors is always likable. He's always a really wonderful character, and just kind of, I don't know, it's just something feels kind of interesting in the way in which we've kind of approached. We have someone who's very much on Peter's side. We're not having like the whole Parker always late. We're not having that. It's just she's
that's Dr. Whitman. He's the one that does that. Whereas Carla is like the one defending him.
Yeah. So that's just, I don't know. It's just kind of so far. I mean, we did say we saw other lab animals at Oscorp, so there's maybe an implication that we saw a lizard in one of those containers. I don't know what kind of lizard. We saw a lizard in one of those things. It might have been an iguana, but the point being something lizard-like. Yep. And but I don't know. I can't really describe. I just kind of liked our take with her. I wasn't, I don't know if I'd put it over some of the other incarnations of lizard, but I mean, I liked her.
It's kind of nice to just not have like male mentor figures.
Yeah, I don't know. That felt really.
Carla Connors is kind of like a nice like Aunt May alternative.
Yeah, I mean that's the art.
We don't really get a lot of female mentor figures for Peter.
Look, I'm not trying to all encompass here, but I gotta be honest. We had a string of really good female characters in this show. I mean, Aunt May, I thought was written flawless. She felt like a New Yorker. She felt like the Marissa Tomei version, but we got to kind of spend a little more time with her. I just really loved everything we did with Aunt
May. I kind of wish we got to spend a little bit more time because she's pretty good, but I feel like they're, especially with what was done with Aunt May and like Spectacular, I think it would be really interesting to see because what does Aunt May do in the MCU movies or in this show for work?
Well, remember that's the thing. We know what she does in 2 of the 3 Spider-Man movies, and 2 of them she has feasts going on.
But is that her sole job?
Well, yeah, in 2 and 3, that's essentially her job. Now, in the first one, we don't know. Aunt May is that's the thing. We know she's being hit on a lot. We don't really know what she does.
Well, because in the comics, it's like she's an old lady who's just kind of
who eventually did volunteer work for Feast. So she did eventually do either way. Anyway, she did eventually do stuff with Feast, and she has like charity work. That's pretty much all we can assume. But you're right that in general, usually like a retired old lady traditionally. Yeah. So here we don't know we know she has a job here, but we don't know what she does. So, I mean, I don't think she's actually. Wait a minute, in the Amazing Spider-Man, nurse, or she did like kind of nurse, like she was a nurse or a supervisor at a hospital. She was. I'm pretty sure she was a nurse.
Yeah, and I think she was like taking extra classes and Macy's Spider-Man to like go up a level or something like that. Yeah,
yeah, that's what it is. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe I think the presumption is maybe that. I'm just going to throw this out there. Now, mind you, there was a moment where I thought, are we going to set up Miles Morales? We didn't. That's fine because we had a really cool twist instead. But it does make me wonder, though. It would be a really neat idea if the Aunt May is a nurse and perhaps that's how she meets Rio Morales.
Or she could work in the police department in some administrative capacity and then know like Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, that's another way.
Or Captain Stacy.
Oh my God! Well, we know for a fact Gwen Stacy is is coming. We don't know when, but she is coming.
I mean, she's going to be season 2.
They say season 2.
Yeah, like
I'm just saying they've announced up to 3 seasons. I don't know. They've announced characters.
If you're showing concept art of a character and you just finished season 1, likely she'll come in to play to season 2.
All right, fine. We'll see her in season 2. Yes, yeah. So she's coming in season 2. So maybe Captain Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but point being, Aunt May, Carla Connors, we're doing pretty well on our female characters because they feel supportive, they feel nice, they feel they feel smart.
Alongside Nico, Pearl, Jean and Asha. Yeah, there's like it's a good.
I don't think there was a miss, honestly, amongst the bunch.
What?
I don't think there was a miss.
No,
amongst the bunch.
it's a well-rounded, diverse, and well-written supporting cast, which is always a plus for Spidey. That's a character that's always defined by their supporting cast, from decade to decade.
Yep. I like that Amadeus Cho is he's kind of the better version of he's kind of the better version of what the MCU was trying to do with Flash Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is essentially the jock equivalent of the science world.
He's the rival, the actual Vegeta to Peter's Goku.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, which I mean is something from the I forget if it was Ultimate or what, but there was it might have been that Marvel Spider-Man, but one of the things they had, I think it was Ultimate. Ultimate had Amadeus Cho in, and that was like a rival of Peter Parker. So Amadeus, that is something we've been kind of pulling from recent Spider-Man stuff. So anyway, okay, so the point being, overall, so the Parker luck classic Spider-Man trope. So things are going great for Peter Parker, but he's dividing his time between the interning, Nico, and Spider-Man himself, and we represent this with the fight with Butane. Now, I love Butane getting the address wrong on the arson. By the way, I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, that would be that would be something it's very reminiscent of like a gag that you see in the John Watts Spider-Man movies. It's like someone's trying to commit a crime, but they got the wrong address.
Yep. So we have a fight. It boils down to practically being the scene from Pee Wee's Big Adventure, which is just pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
The whole the pet store being on fire.
I love the how Spidey shenanigans it is just for Peter try to make sure all the animals are safe and not burnt to a crisp.
Yeah. I got to admit, okay, so I'm going to say this just so we can get it out of the way. So the other, between episode 2 and 3 specifically, we're doing this thing, and I appreciate it, but I think they're kind of trying to pull a Batman, but it's not exactly going the way I think they hoped. So Spider-Man, like Batman, very vast rogues gallery you can pull from. Even outside the biggies, you have the obscure characters, right?
Yes.
Now, with that in mind, I respect that we went obscure, like with Butane, and then later on. The next episode's when I actually have a bit of more of an issue with it, but it's, I guess, just to kind of set it up is that it feels like we may have gone maybe a little too obscure with certain villains. Like Butane, like I don't know. Personally, I would have gone with Molten Man, but let's just say they're like a tech version of Molten Man. But fine, but Butane, fine. Like, it's an arsonist. Okay, the next one's like when we don't even give them a name, and then it just leads to a lot of like, who the heck are these people? That's when we kind of have a problem with it, where it's like we did an obscure pull, but we didn't like kind of like have people like, I would like to know more about that character,
They don't like announce their names, or they're not labeled but as like X name on like the news.
It's like a prototype of something we know we're not going to care about. That's the problem.
It's very similar to like a lot of the villains in the MCU Spider-Man movies not really being like outside of Mysterio and Vulture, like no. Well,
I mean, the Tinkerer. There's the thing. Look, the Tinkerer, I think I like what we did with the Tinkerer. I like that. Okay, so we have someone who's like working with the Vulture and capacity. It makes sense for that character. Tinkerer's always been kind of behind the scenes kind of villain. Anyway, that's fine. And he's essentially, I don't know. That to me felt fine. But it feels like we have a character with with kind of our weapons designer who's basically Leapfrog. He's like, I don't think we need Leapfrog. I think that could have been the Tinkerer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway. But again, more on that later. Point being, end of episode 2, Norman Osborn has Spider-Man on camera as Peter Parker changing into Spider-Man. Again, we're ending these episodes really strongly. Like, oh my God, now like the Green Goblin finding out who Spider-Man is, Norman Osborn has found out who Spider-Man is. Okay, that brings us to episode 3. Secret identity crisis.
I really appreciate how Norman approaches the whole identity thing with Peter.
Yeah.
Because I think for any Spider-Man fan, like it's like, oh, Norman's going to use this as blackmail or as a means of like getting something from Peter. But the way Norman does it is even more sinister in a way where he's like trying to say, hey, I'm your friend. I appreciate so much what you've done for my son and for the city. I want to bankroll and support you all that I can. And I appreciate that Peter kind of initially rejects it.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on is like, realizing how much of an asset or help that Norman can be, especially with dealing with big problems like the 110th Street Gang and also this mysterious technology that we later find out who it is. Like I appreciate that Peter has to go through sort of a process where it's like, hey, I can only do so much. Let me work with this guy who is generally trying to do the right thing or supportive of doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's this in comics with Spider-Man. There's this really difficult thing that we've done in recent years. I don't know if it was like post. I think it was just post Superior Spider-Man, where basically, if we give Spider-Man too many means, he ceases to become the struggling character, which is kind of where he's kind of is the fun niche. Like for example, Spider-Man video games, the Insomniac Spider-Man games, they found a great balance for that, right? Where okay, he's into science, he's got occasionally got means, and he's got just enough.
It's not like a stable means of like doing a lot, but it's more like Peter's able to make do with what he can.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is like you said, if he's like on the level of running Parker Industries or whatever,
Yeah.
um,
Like Parker Industries was a bridge too far. Dan Slott was just kind of he wanted to do something with it worked for Superior, but after that point, it's like, what's Peter Parker gonna do with this?
Yeah, because like on one hand, it's like Peter. I think you can argue that maybe sometimes writers can pile too much on Peter, and
Yeah.
he just can't get a break. And there should be over time a gradual evolution and change the circumstances of Peter. He can't be just still struggling to make ends meet and feel mentally in his early to mid 20s. He has to grow and mature. But I think there's ways to do that without just giving him a lot of money. I think him, doing work in a profession like being a teacher in the JMS run or something that's like socially beneficial but doesn't pay that well, it shows an evolution of the character without sacrificing what makes him so relatable. Because for most people, they're not working jobs that afford them a lot of resources, and I think it gives even more of a struggle for Peter's part to how do I make this work? How do I become responsible for the people in my job and responsible for the people of the city as Spider-Man? And that's always the source of good drama and tension.
Yeah, and again, I loved him trying to become a teacher. Well, he was a teacher in JMS's run, so I loved it when we did that. I loved when the game kind of reflected that briefly, until he realistically didn't go well for him. But I love that's the thing. I love that. But yeah, so we had the fancy dinner with Norman Osborn. It's a very nice gesture. You cleared out the whole place.
That I really appreciate. Like, even though Peter's a good kid, he's still a kid at heart. And so if someone say, "How I'm going to pay for all this the food you're going to eat," I'll take like he would do what I would do if I was in the position. And I think that's something that like I know some people will say that in adaptations of Peter's early years in high school, the people remarked like Peter doesn't have the edge that he had in the initial Lee and Ditko comics. And I do agree that could be an issue in one respect, but I think in another respect, if you were to adapt that faithfully, you have to make a lot of efforts to make Peter grow over time and be likable. And that would be I think that'd be an interesting story to tell, but I don't think the point of the story was like, hey, Peter just is like in a bad place mentally and has to go through being Spider-Man to become a better person. It's more like Peter is a generally good person, but it's more about growing up and trying to realize how do I make do in the world and make sacrifices and learn to balance it all without losing perspective. And I think that's a worthwhile story to tell that can still be relatable to most folks, and we can still see Peter make mistakes and having to learn and grow without necessarily having to make Peter like be borderline unlikable or hateable. Because I think that's the balancing act. It's like because if you lean towards the angsty or like very antisocial aspects of early Lee and Ditko, it wouldn't be the most appealing or most appreciated for a mass audience. So I can understand certain respects maybe standing off those harsh edges.
Yeah. So let's see. So Norman Osborn, he's impressed, and grateful for him saving Harry, which, by the way, was a really good introduction for Harry Osborn and Spider-Man, where he's saving him from the mugging and also from the car.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. I like the marketing showing him like saving Harry. That's pretty cool. Doing the iconic Amazing Fantasy pose.
Yeah.
Just again, I love. So ultimately, one of the reasons he stayed with the intern program is it's basically one of the reasons Norman Osborn started the intern program was to find Spider-Man and reward him for saving his son. I love this approach with Norman Osborn, but I love there's like a little menace to it as well. He had all these means, and it was a machination to find Spider-Man. Which there's still like there's a sinister nature to the way in which he did. In the fact it's kind of a power, but it's kind of a power flex to clear out the restaurant the way he did. Again, it's for a purpose, like showing that hey, you're okay with me. I'm thinking about these things. I'm protecting your secret. It's a trust thing, and again, it does feel like Spider-Man, classic Spider-Man. Okay, he's doing the right thing. He's turning down the financial reward. But Aunt May does have bills, and this is a job. It's an internship. He's putting the work in,
Mm-hmm.
and so I love that. He's in a very realistic, understandable position there, where he like we have the bit where Aunt May's like trying to sell off things, and he sees we have Uncle Ben's camera, which was a really again. I love that we're getting them the iconic Spider-Man stuff. Unfortunately, we weren't really doing in the MCU, but we're finding really meaningful ways to work it in there. It's like the idea is like that we're playing with here is again that they hinted at in the MCU. That roughly 6 months ago, Uncle Ben probably that's probably when that happened. So it's still pretty recent. So there's some genuine mourning going on there. Like the old bowling shirts and the pictures of Ben and everything. So it's an acknowledgement of the man, which I appreciate, and also it's kind of a reminder. I got to take care of Aunt May no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course, we have Lonnie's fall from grace. I love the lunch. All the food gestures in this episode are great. I love like Lonnie's the gesture of like, hey, we aced the project together. Because again, like Lonnie and Peter buddies, despite like him stealing his girlfriend or stealing his potential girlfriend. Fair, then steal. I know he didn't steal, or I'm just saying.
I feel like you couldn't date even if you wanted to have a chance. I don't know if you could have a chance with someone who like babysitted you, right?
I don't know. Rom-coms have been built upon that foundation, my friend. It's not impossible.
Oh man, that.
Have you ever seen the movie The Long Shot?
No. Wait, which movie is that?
It's the one with Seth Rogen and Charlie.
Oh, Long Shot. It's not The Long. It's just Long Shot.
Right, I know. I keep adding the to that, but yes, that one. It's possible.
Yeah, like after several years has passed, and like Seth Rogen and Charlie Theron are very different stages of life.
Yeah,
but
right,
maybe not right away. Maybe when they're on it, if this show were to go far enough to get into college, I could see like Peter shooting a shot with Pearl.
Okay, the point being, okay, you're right. It's an uphill battle. Okay, but I'm rooting for him. We like Peter Parker. I want things to work out for the kid.
Yeah. Maybe Peter gets shacked up with Gwen Stacy next season.
I mean, there you go. Anyway, point being, it's a refreshing friendship, is my point, between him and Lonnie. The fact they become lab partners, and the fact that Lonnie kind of subverts the jockage, Anyway, so the lunch gesture is really nice, where he buys lunch for everyone, but his card's been declined, so he just uses the cash that he has left, and he sticks with the apple. And then we have the heartbreak of what happens with Andre. So he ends up joining the 110 gang, 110th gang, which is led by Big Ben Donovan. So this is a fun Luke Cage nod. I do love me some. I got really excited when we heard, "Oh my God, Big Ben Donovan." I was a little let down, Donovan, but his inclusion did please me, though.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you the bit that I really hated with the 110 and just Big Ben Donovan that really let me down. It was like, oh no, Ben, no. Was the bit where like he was like anti homework and studying, which the whole point of that character is like he studied the law. I guess the idea is he would have to have been arrested or in prison to actually become the Big Ben Donovan we all know, but just the fact that he's not book smart, he's perpetuating the bad stereotype. We hate learning.
I feel like the whole book smart gang leader is probably Tombstone's lane.
I know it is, but still, it's the fact that maybe he could have gotten that from Big Ben Donovan. I don't know.
If he did, then like it would have made it not made much sense for him to kind of abdicate his role as the leader.
I know that's why they didn't do it, but it just still feels like that. That just feels maybe a bit of a betrayal to who that guy is. But then again, he didn't get in jail yet. If he was in jail, then that's when to make the change. So I guess it kind of makes sense. But again, could just be just use the name for a change up. He's local to Harlem. He's a cool. Yeah, it's a cool character in practice. I love the. Here's the thing. I love they did him so right in the bit later on. The whole like, hey, is something wrong with telling your mom you love her? It's like, okay, that's what I'm looking for right there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's just point being, Lonnie offers a trade up. Himself in lieu of his brother's already been pinched by the cops. Let him out of the gang life. It's a noble sacrifice for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we have our arms dealer making enhanced weapons for essentially Speed Demon and Tarantula, or at least Speed Demon in some version. We don't even give them names; it just feels dumb. But we have these unfortunately now nameless characters.
Well, they're named in the credits, but
I know they have names, but that's what I'm saying though. It's like nameless villains because of how we've executed them here.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so we have just this couple, and they become we have like a guy who can run fast, and a lady with essentially science knives.
Tarantula.
Yes, exactly, Tarantula.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I like I love the idea of like arming like the small time thieves, which again feels very much like what we did in Homecoming, which is a really cool. I love that idea with street level Spider-Man villains and how we kind of bolster them. It's like kind of we're in for the Prowler.
It's kind of like the CW Flash, where all
yeah
get distribute all the tech, and they just kind of ramp it up to be able to take on the Flash.
Yeah. So, Norman Osborn lends an assist, and he becomes the guy at the desk, which is a fun multiverse equivalent to, guy in the chair, or dude in the chair.
No, he's the dude at the desk.
It's dude, right? Sorry, dude in the desk, guy at the chair. That's what I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's again, it's pretty neat. And, we, let's see.
I appreciate that the solution to the fight was just the fact that technology can be overclocked. And so just having Spider-Man really test and really put through the ringer the tech that the villains were using, I think is always a fun like science solution. And Peter's never obviously there's some times where Peter can think of a scientific solution and whip something up on the fly, but being able to understand just the principles of with the amount of energy expended, there's going to be a point at which the technology just breaks and is like overclocked or overdoing it. So that was neat to see play out.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, we're going to move on to the next one. But again, it's just with the way we did our villains here, it just really feels like, even though they are characters from the comics, the way in which we execute them here, it just feels like, it makes me feel like, really, you couldn't think of any Spider-Man villains to use? But again, I appreciate they were going for the deep cut. I really do. I just really wish we could have put it like if the criminals could have gotten cocky enough to give themselves names or a gag or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because if your kid's watching the show, unless he was paying attention to the credits, they wouldn't know what the name of the villains are, and just happen oh, I like that guy. It's like, well, you can describe what they look like, but not be able to name them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, that brings us to episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
Hitting the big time. So, Nora Osborn, we have so this one, I got to admit, of the episodes, this one was kind of my least favorite. I really didn't like so we had the trial and error with the Spider-Man suit. Now, again, look, I'm a tech guy. I love sorry, I shouldn't say I'm not tech savvy. I like gadgets, and I like the evolving methodology and the building of these. So I like the trial and error process, but the way in which we did it here, I wasn't crazy about, because we're doing very obvious costume humor here, and it just feels like Norman Osborn is too smart to really be this stupid. He's just, come on, he has to know these aren't going to work out for him. He's just arbitrary. I know the point is that he's thinking like a businessman before he's thinking like in service of Spider-Man. That's kind of the point of the season, but it feels like, come on, man. His gimmick is he shoots web. Why would he fly? And let alone why would he fly with wings? Why change the bug gimmick? It's like I really wish we had a fine point. Okay, the wingsuit kind of worked for him. That might lead to the underarm webbing, something like that. But we didn't do that.
I mean, I feel like that's very realistic to like business person logic, right? Where
Yeah,
it's not like, hey, this what is the relevance? Like, it's the whole theme is spiders, webs. It's kind of like the John Peters. Hey, we need to bring a big giant spider. What does that have to do with Superman? It's just cool. Like, I just think for Norman Osborn, like, he values Peter's power, but not Peter's like brand.
yeah.
And I think so long as Peter's working under Norman, I think in the way he's not really thinking of like, oh, I'm trying to sell Spider-Man. It's like, look, I'm trying to take Spider-Man and selling it like as something Oscorp TM. It's an Oscar trademark thing. So I think the way that, these suits and the humor of it, yeah, I mean, I can understand in one respect it's like Norman should know better, but it's like, would Norman, you want to be intelligent, but not necessarily have a sense of wisdom or like awareness of how people operate. And I think for Norman, the certain characteristics he displays later on in the season, he very much isn't really connected with people, and I think that's reflective of how he acts and the decisions he makes that endanger the lives of
Yeah.
others.
So that's what I'm saying. In the grand whole, I get what it's going for. It just feels like the way the humor plays. Until, for example, okay, the wings, like the black wingsuit thing. I thought of the costumes, that one was the funniest, just because of like the real, and that felt with the businessman comedy the best one. Like, oh yeah, I was afraid that was going to happen. The idea that he terrified this little girl giving her a balloon back, that's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's a good foreshadow. Again, the underarm webbing potentially, and the scare factor of the symbiote potentially. That I like that.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a joke. It feeds into what Norman's missing, and also maybe foreshadows some stuff down the
Also,
line.
I think part of it is like having the different outfits. It's like we don't know if he would have expected Peter to wear one outfit the entire time, or just have different looks that fit. Because I think that would feel like Norman Osborn would be willing to like merchandise the hell out of different looks for Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, he would go for the variant toy.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be enough money to help support Spider-Man enterprise at all.
Yeah.
So
I mean, honestly, Rohit, I think what fundamentally bugs me about it is the fact that when they were in the restaurant, Norman Osborn had like a million ideas for Spider-Man, and those ideas that he was thinking of actually, would have fit basically the main suit the main prototype suit that we get that actually works. And it feels like, where were all those good ideas, Norman? Why, why give him a cape? And the very, here's a missed opportunity it throws out there. It's not a big deal. You remember when Spider-Man in the comics had like the Ricochet and all the like the 3 different looks or something, like the clones, and we gave
it's the slingers look. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. What if we did like a nod to that? Like with the give them the ridiculous costumes that way.
I mean, isn't that what that was done with this episode?
No, I'm saying like of the specific looks that we went with. I mean, it feels like it was like, why didn't we actually go with the literal translations of those looks?
I mean, it was probably try to be taking what it was on the page and making it work in animation. Or
yeah, it felt like it was like close. Like, we're gonna do them wrong anyway. Let's just pull them like something really specific, because it just felt like they always went really random with it. Look, it's not Chris. I'm just throwing it out there as a maybe. But anyway, okay, let's see. So, point being, we're in the midst of Civil War and the Accords going on, like the airport battle in Germany, minus Sans a Spider-Man happened. So this creates a problem for a non-Iron Man affiliated Spider-Man, which I thought was really inventive here. Like, okay, yeah, what is he gonna do? Which, by the way, with Iron Man, I love how we made the classic suit work with the '60s style. That was so awesome.
Yeah, and if I have one minor complaint, I really wish the cap suit had the traditional red and white stripes.
I know the second I saw it, oh man, Rohit's gonna hate that.
Like, if they were to make the fact they made Iron Man his classic '60s look work, why can't they make like why is Cap suit more the MCU design and not just something like it could be a bit of the MCU design, but a little bit more of the classic comics.
It really feels like you're the only one who doesn't like the way we did the stripes.
It's not stripes; they're geometric shapes. I want the red, white, and blue be the flag, not like some weird,
I think you just Rohit. I just think you hate geometry.
I did all right in geometry. I just don't like. I just feel like
I didn't say you weren't good at it. I say I think you hate it.
I think it works for certain characters. For Captain America, he's just essentially a symbol of the United States, and that flag is a very simple design that it shouldn't be hard to replicate it in the costume. Just that's all.
Right. All right. Anyway, so the 110 gang, they're at war with the Scorpions. Again, street level conflict fits our Spider-Man here. It's kind of this. So ultimately, what we're doing with the Scorpion gang, this is kind of the ultimate. What if we? Well, I guess ultimate in both senses of the word. In a sense, I guess depending how you look at it, this is the ultimate kind of what if we paid off the Scorpion setup in Homecoming, which I really appreciate. I was really thrilled with what we did with Scorpion in this.
Mm-hmm.
I already mentioned my gripe with the whole Donovan doesn't respect getting homework done. uh, anyway, so the burrito. This we have the after this we have the burrito lunch run in with which puts him in the crosshairs of Camilla Black, who's I believe the other Scorpion, or like Scorpion's main lieutenant, who I believe also doesn't she don like the Lady Scorpion outfit?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I like that we're kind of setting that up too with her, so in a realistic way. But again, I love the progression on Lonnie here, where it's for the villain turn. It wasn't a light switch. We kind of see him progressively getting enraptured in this, and basically with this encounter, he can't get out now. He's completely trapped with this because now there's a target on his back, and that was kind of like Donovan's plan here.
And I think that's where maybe Big Ben Donovan, even though he isn't book smart, he's very street smart.
Absolutely, yeah.
And pulling that over like Lonnie, at this point, it would be irresponsible if he leaves the 110.
Yeah, so that's really clever. I'll give him that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the theme of this episode, and just kind of in the series, even just getting between this and episode, honestly, between 4 and 8, if you really look at it this way, there's a big theme of this episode where Peter Parker needs to speak up and bring the Spider-Man confidence into his day-to-day life because he's terrible at presentations, and he's just letting Norman Osborn steamroll him at every turn, which again is kind of the point of like he needs to be a Spider-Man on his own terms, which is kind of where we are by the end of things. Where Norman Osborn, despite as far as we can tell, legitimately good intentions, he is maybe leading him down again he's leading down the path of big business, which is not where Spider-Man needs to be, despite what Norman Osborn thinks.
Mm-hmm.
So the reward for this is Norman is he's kind of getting around. I like that Norman again he does see the error in his ways, but here's the important distinction though. He kind of does, but it's kind of the spectacular thing where Norman Osborn doesn't apologize really. Ultimately, he spins it. He's never really admitting fault. He's saying, you know what, here's the direction we should be going. We have a real moment of like non-apology later on. I'm not saying he never actually apologized, but he never like does like legit kind of admittance of fault. It's like, it's just kind of like he takes as a learning curve, I guess.
Yeah.
So we have the cool prototype suit, which I love the idea. It's basically the Spider-Man suit in primer,
Mm-hmm.
So he saves people in a car wreck that was caused by a Russian bank robber gang, which we'll be talking about next episode. And Harry learns Peter's secret because we didn't do the cool Osborn office lockdown this time.
Yeah, I appreciate the accidental nature of it all, and I really appreciate Harry Osborn's characterization in the show. Like Harry Osborn's kind of a character that's malleable to a certain extent, and there's always like a few base characteristics. One, it's like he's a guy that's good friends with Peter, but it feels like his dad values Peter more than him. Two, he's really the popular guy that like Peter looks up to or wants to be friends with. And three, it's what you have in like Insomniac, where like Harry is just as much of a nerd as Peter, and it's like science bros or whatever. And in this, it's like, okay, you're taking advantage of the fact that Harry Osborn, being a rich kid, would be doing rich kid things, but unlike Norman, he doesn't have the kind of like jerkish mentality that one would expect of a rich kid like him.
Yeah, I really like what we did with Harry here because you're right. It's kind of a mixture of a lot of stuff that we've done with Harry, where he's in a position plot wise where Norman would have to value Peter over him. I mean, he still loves his son, but by the same token, though, you get a sense that right now he's prioritizing Spider-Man over his son, and he basically kind of dumps to deal with his son less. He kind of dumps, but honestly, deal with both of them less. He kind of deals. He kind of puts Harry now in the loop against what he kind of wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Harry's kind of now running point on Team Spider-Man when he's unavailable doing other things.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to, again, like Harry Osborn in the comics. From what I remember in the comics, the idea is like he and Peter weren't like good friends. They were just kind of like they were roommates, and it was more just like a thing where they weren't best friends, and it was just the thing where Harry's like there's a lot of leads, and he was more Flash Thompson's friend. Even Spider-Man the Animated Series kind of did this too, where they weren't really good friends. They were kind of in the same, they were around the same place at the same time, and they kind of like over time, just because I don't know, it's more friends out of a courtesy, and maybe Peter kind of grew to like the guy. You know what I mean?
I think they became more good friends like from when throughout college and then when they graduated and were their own. Especially I think all the way to like when Peter got married. I think it wasn't until the Raimi films and Spectacular Spider-Man where we kind of established this like Peter, because the thing is Harry doesn't show up till Peter's in college, and it's kind of interesting for in other media adaptations you have both Harry and MJ characters specifically when Peter was in college and put them in the high school setting, and I think part of it is because you people like those characters and those dynamics, and instead of just waiting and having a very limited supporting cast in high school, you just kind of have a big supporting cast in high school, and then in the scores ever went to college, you continue on with all of them or most of them. So I think for this, it's like it's faithful to sort of the initial dynamic of Peter.
But he forgets Peter's name right off the bat. Like that, there's room to grow on Harry, which we do in this show, which is good.
Yeah, and not only does Harry get to grow with Peter, but he also gets to grow with Nico. And
Yeah.
Nico and when we get to their relationship, they're a really interesting dynamic. Those two.
Oh yeah, like Nico calls him out on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, so that's going to bring us to also we reveal the arms dealer of the Infinity Arms logo. It's none other than Dr. Otto Octavius.
Or as it was in the beginning of the Lee Ditko run, the Master Planner.
Yep. That brings us to episode 5. The Unicorn Unleashed. So Doc Ock as our kind of Doc Ock pre-arms, voiced by Hugh Dancy. Hugh Dancy did an excellent job. He didn't sound like Hugh Dancy at all.
I did not. It's amazing how much of a chameleon he was. As
I thought he was Alan Tudyk. I really did.
He the way that Otto Octavius plays in this show, like he very much is like he's basically Doc Ock without the arms, and that's such a dynamic to me because usually in my mind it's like when you have Dr. Otto Octavius before he has the arms, he's either meekish or he's standoffish, but not.
Or he's a mentor, he's a teacher, that kind of
he doesn't have the kind of like.
It's a lot nicer.
Yeah, he doesn't have the drive or the confidence that Doc Ock typically has. And in this, the way he's operating, it's like, oh, this is kind of it's taking from Insomniac and then putting him in the criminal role already, which is, I think, a really neat twist to bring in Dr. Octavius in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an inspired idea, and the fact that I honestly, I gotta be honest, I love just kind of like the shady business aspect of it. I love the idea that he's this back alley arms dealer, and he hates that he has to do this, but he has to make ends meet for greater plans for him to kind of rise to prominence again.
Mm-hmm.
So he's selling these super weapons to criminals. So it's kind of like one of the great things that Spectacular Spider-Man did was we linked almost all of our villains, at least the great majority of the villains, season one particularly, were creations of Oscorp, and we've kind of turned that on its ear here with a lot. Essentially, it's Doctor Octavius behind that,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was a really cool thing. But again, it's so interesting. Most of the great versions of Octavius, just given the fact that Norman Osborn has, like a company and there's a science division and everything, it feels like they're kind of fated to be enemies or fated to be. It's kind of like the whole it's like certain characters having rivalries or just kind of like there's like a history as a friendship. There's also like a rivalry, like almost like a Joker Lex thing, or I guess there's probably some other better, kind of.
Which is funny to think about because in the comics it's like Doc Ock and Green Goblin or like they're not really related together. Like Doc Ock just through mishaps become like a bad guy in his own.
Yeah.
It isn't until things like Spectacular Spider-Man and even more so with Insomniac that you establish this kind of rivalry between Doc Ock and Green Goblin because there is sort of a rivalry between the two at some later points in the comics of being like who's the one to take down Peter as Spider-Man, and then there's a really interesting dynamic with Doc Ock being in the body of Peter as Spirit
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man versus Green Goblin. Um, and I think like it's sort of the thing where you kind of wonder for Jeff Trammell and company. It's like, all right, the stuff that was done with Tony Stark in the Spidey movies. What if we just did something similar to all that, but with Norman Osborn, and really kind of go full tilt with sort of like Norman Osborn being a shady businessman that screws over people and gives justification to characters like Nico being as skeptical as she is as people like Norman.
Yeah. I mean, in a weird way, it's kind of Norman Osborn is like an Iron Man pre-abduction, but in a weird sense though, it's like Spider Man is his way back for basically with the arc reactor. If that makes it that comparison has any
I
merit to
mean,
it at all.
he's more Obadiah Stane, but has the like awareness and like branding of Tony Stark.
Yeah. And it's also the fun little Easter egg of like Leapfrog is his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so he dreams of bigger things. Anyway, we have so we have Harry on Team Spider-Man. It's a good reason for the friendship with Harry. So we have like an introduction. It's an unconventional introduction that kind of works in their favor ultimately. It's not forced. It's like they're kind of naturally bonding. Like they're both big Cap fans, which is a fun reversal in itself. The idea in the MCU, retroactively a little, mind you, but the idea like many look at Spider-Man as like that little kid in Iron Man 2. So the idea is like even if you factor it in or not, it's the fact that he's very Team Iron Man. He's very much he likes Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
Which just kind of made him very into Cap, which is like traditional Spider-Man, which I really love. Just the idea that big Cap fan as is Harry. So there's a fun little kind of thing there. So our Russian gang. So we have three prominent. There's four characters, three of them prominent. We have Unicorn, who was. I love that. I was so impressed that the Unicorn was like used as kind of like a foreshadow to the Rhino.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because the helmet, initially I was thinking, is this kind of our update on the Rhino? And then it's like, okay, no, this is even better. So we did Unicorn. We have a guy who clearly looks a lot like classic Rhino, with Sistovich. And we have the Chameleon. I love our thing with the Chameleon there. Dimitri later on we put him in the full garb and everything, and we have Roxana, who is to my knowledge nobody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yes, we have our Russians, and we kind of do stuff with our Russians. And let's see. So there's a battle, and we have this awesome bit where the unicorn. I love that she's loyal to her people. Like she promised she would be back for them, and she did. So there's like a lot of loyalty and honor there. By the same token, though, she kind of let the ambition blind her. She used Sistovich as a kind of proto Rhino as bait, and Spider-Man had to save him, and it was this really great moment of essentially the Rhino turned on her, and it was this moment of like wait, don't let this fool you. We're not friends. I'm going. Both of us are going to jail now. So next time I see you, I'm gonna squash you, bug.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know, I really loved that moment. I love there was like, again, it's like the magic of Spider-Man, where Spider-Man is a really good person. He can turn people, and the fact that it's even if they're villains, there's going to be the moments of like they can respect this guy. And again, but it's not great power earns great respect. It's kind of the great, kind of, I don't know.
Well, you could argue the reverse was like with great respect comes great power.
There you go. Better,
Mm-hmm.
That's a better way of putting it. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's see. So we have a gang brawl here. Lonnie earns speaking of the respect. He takes a knife for Donovan. Takes a knife, and we rename him Tombstone, which is like, oh my god, we're getting closer.
Yeah.
Yep. Pete makes the introduction between Nico and Harry, which we're going to expand upon in the next episode. Duel with the Devil.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how I was counting. I was counting the episodes to get to this one.
And with Daredevil showing up in this, it was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Cox, I think, does well in the voice performance.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we got to see Matt Murdock outside of costume just for a little bit. Maybe he would have had like a little fun interaction with Peter Parker, but just seeing him as Daredevil, it's cool, to see them fight. Daredevil was able to hold his own, so was Spidey, and there was a good like back and forth. And I really appreciate that Norman thinks that like Daredevil was working for Dr. Octavius, and he's like, oh, Daredevil's a professional. It's like, oh man, this is just Norman Osborn blinders. You just can't consider like other ways. Especially, I really appreciate that like especially when we get to Doctor Strange, like Norman just does not compute or able to process like other heroes being just traditional heroes or close to traditional heroes, as say he does with Spider-Man.
Okay, this is not a criticism, but it is something that I always kind of think about with Daredevil. And mind you, it's just me not thinking like I'm sure there's a way around this, but it does make you wonder: how does Daredevil hack a computer?
I mean,
Well, that's the thing. Like he doesn't have like we. I want to be clear. In Daredevil, the show, we've seen him use a computer, but that's like his own personal computer where he has like like the
Braille.
like yeah, there's like the Braille function on there and the whole like all the things that he needs.
And like it speaks out like what as he's typing or whatever.
And even like World on Fire or not, I mean, I think there's only so much you can do with that. I mean, it's a computer.
well, consider what we know at the end. Like he wasn't the one hacking the computer.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yep. That forget it. That's great. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry about that. But it's still, it's always the two things with Daredevil always occurs to me is like, it's the computer thing, and more so, I always feel like the way to get Daredevil is like, throw a bomb at him. Like, no, that's I don't mean throw. I mean have like Daredevil.
There is a scene in Charles Soule's run of Daredevil where like Daredevil like sees a bomb, and it's like, what wire? Okay, describe the wires, and he like can't describe the wires. So he like I think eventually jumps out, and as the bomb explodes, and the bomb people's like, why did you not tell us? And he just can't explain that he's blind. So
yeah.
See,
that's the stuff I'm always thinking about there. Like, that seems to be the way a villain would get him if they just put him in a room with a bomb.
Or just really, it would have to be something that you can only see and not hear, smell, or be able to touch, right?
Yeah. Which Muse offers some potential challenges there, which is I'm looking forward to. But again, that's not here. We're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm 100% with you. I love the Daredevil fight. I love that we kind of have like a remix of the Daredevil theme while they're fighting. It's just the fact that it's mostly to explain to Spider-Man, I know you're trying to do, again, this is like class Daredevil. He's trying to mentor the kid in a sense. You're like, I know you're trying to do good here, but Norman Osborn's hiding things from you. Essentially, what Daredevil's trying to communicate is what he's hiding for the finale. It's essentially what he's trying to warn about here.
But in a way, Daredevil is, as always, classic Daredevil, he's a bit of a hypocrite because he's also hiding something from Spider-Man, with the fact that he has someone already undercover for Osborn. And I think I really like the design of his suit. It's very much like a good in between, like his traditional Daredevil outfit and like the black suit from seasons 1 and 3.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is, I'm with you with the Matt Murdock thing. In a perfect world, I would have loved to have seen that too. But by the same token, we do have more seasons coming, and we don't know if it's two. We know that D'Onofrio Kingpin is on the horizon. That was confirmed, so he's coming.
Okay.
I think they confirmed that the fact they didn't say two. We don't have a design that makes me think probably season 3, but I don't know. The point being, he is on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna get more Daredevil mostly, especially with the little helper. So
yeah.
Anyway, so okay. Overall, so honestly, besides that, the episode's pretty straightforward. It's just Peter's trying to get Harry and Nico to be friends. Have the VHS tape party at his house.
There's a Moon Knight. There's a Moon Knight reference in there.
Oh yeah, the Stephen Grant thing. Right?
Yeah.
Nice. We have the lack of mom conversation. A little tease at Nico's necklace.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Okay, I love this. I love Norman Osborn schmoozing Secretary Ross and looking the other way on Spider-Man, offering technological assist and also superhuman asset, which I thought made a lot of sense for how does Spider-Man get around the Accords.
I always felt that the Sokovia Accords was only applicable for superheroes doing like international, foreign operations.
I agree with that, but by the same token, we did kind of address I think we addressed the Accords a little in She-Hulk. So
not. I think I know what you're talking about, because I think that aspect was because of it covers mainly superheroes doing foreign operations, but I also there covers probably superheroes like having like certain type of dangerous technology.
Yeah.
And I think in that respect, like Spider-Man's technology is not like dangerous.
Oh,
right?
no.
No repulsors, vibranium.
Yeah, it's just webs and it just looks icky.
Yeah. And I wonder if maybe there's just not something specific to like minors, doing vigilante stuff.
Well, again, worst case, just going with the multiverse, and they might be making a little bit more traditional kind of registration under a different name. But the mainline MCU, I think you are right. I think it is just more, But again, the jury's kind of out, just given we are playing fast and loose. I mean, thankfully so in this case. We are able to kind of. It presents a problem for Spider-Man that also kind of ties into more traditional Civil War.
But also, it kind of addresses something that sometimes people will say, but not often. It's like, oh, where are the Avengers? Why are they not? It's like, well, Sokovia Accords broke up the Avengers, and now Spider-Man has a much greater role in protecting New York City because there's not many heroes operating day to day in New York City itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Let's see. I think. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Norman Osborn, he reveals to Peter that Octavius is the prime suspect here. The alloy for the arms. We're kind of setting up the alloy for the arms as what Tarantula was using.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I love that there's a question of how much is Norman Osborn embellishing on, how depraved Octavius is. You're like, oh yeah, Octavius, you always want recognition and everything.
Yeah.
Which again, you kind of have to wonder. And also, there was a bit of I'm blanking on the exact line, but there was a really good line here where Norman Osborn kind of basically the way it was very hypocritical in that basically what he was doing essentially is what he did to Octavius. Essentially, what he's saying that he always looked for. Octavius basically was looking for recognition or something that he felt the world owed him, or something along those lines. I'm blanking on the exact. I had it when I was doing my rewatch for it. I kind of lost it, but I don't know. We'll see if it comes back, I guess. Let's see. All right. Okay. Think about. Nico finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. Harry kind of lets it slip. So Harry's not great at being the dude behind the desk, but he's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now. Admittedly, this is kind of a bit of a sticking point in the season for a lot of people. That Nico finding out Peter's Spider-Man. It's kind of two minds about it because on one hand, the whole point was that she feels a little sidelined by Peter has a new friend she doesn't know anything about, and he's seemingly in the know about his life a little more than she is. Specifically, no secrets, and boom, she found out that Peter's been Spider-Man this whole time. Flip side, though, she's keeping a secret of her own, and we're kind of doing the Amber Invincible thing. A lot of people have cited the Amber from Invincible thing. I'm not saying it's necessarily that, but it is kind of, it feels she feels a
We
little judgy.
we really have superhero discourse really needs to evolve in its discussion about civilian characters responding to Revelation super identity, because the whole Amber thing, it's flawed in how in the fact that Amber knew but didn't just think to just talk or address Mark head on.
Yeah,
But I think later on with what's done with Amber, I feel like people should just let go with issues with Amber, because
I know.
and also with Lois and Minor Superman. And okay, I'm gonna say this: if you're a civilian character and you find out your close friend was a superhero and didn't tell you about it, I think we would not act in our best selves and would be mad at being held a secret, especially if beforehand they never made their social engagements, they were cagey about why they didn't make it, and this and that, and then you would feel like I've just been angry at you and being a bad friend, but you were being a good guy or good person, and now I feel like a jerk in thinking that way. And like I would feel like if we were, I think the mistake for a lot of people when consuming superhero media is that we think too much from the perspective of what hey, this story needs to be engaging, whatever, and go with the flow. But things like this is supposed to be moments of drama, moments of tension,
Mm-hmm.
and also you have to think not in just from the viewpoint of the superhero. You have to think from the viewpoint of the characters who have to deal with the ramifications of said superhero not telling the truth and putting them in harm's way. And I think in this respect, like Nico is within her right to be mad, especially since Nico has been like such a close friend of Peter for like a year, or like however months, like how long they've been friends. So I would have to imagine, for all intents and purposes, like I would feel some type of way if like a close friend of mine divulged a secret to someone he just recently met or knew and didn't tell me, my like longer term friend, especially if that other friend is like emblematic of the things that I dislike about society. Yeah, of course Nika would have like a bit of a chip on her shoulder about all that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to episode 7. Scorpion Rising. Is a big Scorpion episode that I think really turned a lot of people onto the show. Like, oh my god, they've been sleeping on this. We gotta watch this. This is where essentially this is the episode where our plots collide. The Lonnie plot and the kind of Peter's plot.
Mm-hmm.
So Lonnie, he's Lonnie's loved ones are noticing the absence. His mom's calling. This is where we go like the whole like, hey, let's like, what's wrong with telling your mom that you love her? It's which good scene. Yeah, and Lonnie trying to take care of his family and doing some really good stuff there. His Dre, by the way, a little ungrateful. I mean, he's making a decent point, but by the same token, it's like I mean, I get where his brother's coming from. The whole thing he wanted to, just not be in Lonnie's shadow. By the same token, it's like, what? Do you understand what your brother's doing on your behalf? Could you be a little more understanding? He's a young punk, though, so I don't know.
Well, but also like, for all intents and purposes, there wasn't much going on with Dre. And while yes, Lonnie being the good brother, was fighting to make sure Dre was okay, Lonnie had a lot going for him. And I think in a way, I think there's a part of him, and this might be something that'd be interesting to play out more in the next season with how far Lenny goes as Tombstone. Like Dre probably in his mind feels responsible for making Lonnie be this like potentially hardened criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And in his mind, it's like Lonnie was supposed to be the golden boy, supposed to be, get out of this like situation and make something good for himself. And now Dre being a punk kid took that away from Lonnie. And I have to imagine in some way Dre feels responsible for whatever happens to Lonnie and whatever Lonnie does as Tombstone, the 1/10.
I mean, frankly, I think he should.
Day Dragon, you don't feel like, oh yeah.
I don't feel sympathy for Dre. I think Dre again. He did. He had his family. I really love the Lincoln family, man. I love plus I loved later on the fact that even after everything that's gone down the line, mind you, I know he's keeping certain details at arm's length, I'm sure, but I love the fact that with the realities that he can't cover up, like how school's going, and essentially he's kind of going to school, he's good studying for the GED. He's still doing everything he can to please his parents, and the fact that they seem to be okay and they're putting their a lot of trust in because they know he's a good kid fundamentally. They believe in him, and the web thing I'm sure is helping. But I don't know, it just feels like his parents are really good people, and it just feels like Dre just really threw that all away only because he wanted to be out of Shed. He just wanted to be a big shot, and I don't know. I don't have sympathy for Dre, what he did to his poor mother.
You know what that's indicative? That's very much what Peter was acting like, in the comics before he had to learn his lesson about with great power comes great responsibility.
What was he specifically doing in the comics before then? Because I know traditionally we have like the wrestling thing. I know he wanted to be
but it's like focusing on his own self-interest rather than like the well-being of others, right? Because specifically this is something that's specifically the deviation from it is noteworthy. So in the comics, he gets the money and he doesn't get screwed over by the wrestling folks. He's just walking with his money, and then a robber comes by, and he hasn't been screwed over and inconvenienced. He doesn't care to just help out and stop because he's that selfish when he gets the Spider-Man powers. And I think in that respect, like Dre is pretty much like realistic to a kid who maybe doesn't have a lot going for him, and without thinking much of the long-term consequences, joins a gang, and then puts others at risk. And I think what I appreciate for Dre at the very least is that he clues in Pearl what's going on with Lonnie. And depending on where things go, I really want to see Dre kind of confront head on with what his brother is turning into and have some level of regret about it, which that's a good level of drama.
I'm going to say this though, okay? That's a very fair point, but by the same token, here's what Peter didn't have, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Dre gets pinched by the cops, gets taken home, has to face his mother, break his mother's heart, and he sneaks right out. Okay, Peter would have had that moment right there, like what, maybe I've done something wrong here. Maybe I should evaluate my choices.
I don't know. Peter was very antisocial, like very early on, and he had to go through a lot to be a much nicer, more appreciative individual.
Oh, he was nice to his aunt and uncle before then.
Yeah, I guess he would at the very least like.
I mean, I don't think he would just snap at him and sneak out. I don't know.
That would have been Andrew Garfield. Peter.
That's what I mean. That's the fine line, because we have the comics, we have the Raimi, we have the Andrew Garfield. There's a lot to.
So no, I think, but it's very Terry McGinnis. I will say that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so
anyway. Okay, just like refocusing here. Okay, so Peter and Norman Osborn, they're on the hunt for Doc Ock. We have a lot of great nods to the Raimi films here, which I really loved. It's like, what material is he using? Tritium, maybe? He's just like, no, not even he could. It's the rarest, one of the rarest metals on the planet. Not even he could get it. What kind of power is he using? Solar energy? Not even he could, could harness that much power. It's like, oh, yeah, the power of the sun, the palm of his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Adorable, love it. So we established the gamma power source, which is pretty neat. We've established it, and also the dangers, and also feeds into the whole radioactive Spider-Man aspect of it. Also,
and also it's relevant considering who's in the Oscorp internship group.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying the gamma was a pretty good choice. Aside from obviously we can't do the solar power, but it was a good choice. Harry and Nico, they're bonding again. So it's trick. Look, it's tricky with Nico. Look, I want to be clear. I don't want to just sandbag on the girl, because I don't think it's just like the Amber. I think the Amber thing and the Lois thing are very different situations. Of the three, I think Lois a lot more forgivable, but that's just me. The point being, though, I just she's cool with Harry, and realistically, we see her kind of get over the hump with Harry. But Peter, she's Peter's got more work to do there, and it just feels like, I don't know, if she's just shutting Peter out, not really,
I mean,
really talking it through with him. I don't think that's
part of it's also she has a big secret to hold, and I feel like there's a bit of guilt, and like she's also projecting her feelings about holding her secret and not telling Peter. So I think I think dealing with all that, especially as a teenager, I feel like there should be a little bit of a pass on. And that's the thing. That's the thing that kind of frustrates me about like when people talk about like moments of tension or conflicts. Like superheroes, by their very nature, them doing their job is always going to lead to some level of conflict and tension at home. And I just feel like either people forget that when they go back to watching the old, like think of the DCAU, Batman, Superman, especially Static and Batman Beyond, like those young characters having to do the superhero thing on the side. There's always conflict and consequences for that led to things not going well for them. But that's just part of the genre. I just don't get when people complain about stuff like that in modern superhero stuff. It's like, well, how else do you get drama beat like because you can have it at the other end where they know the identity and there's really not much conflict or tension beyond just like, oh, I disagree with how you went about the superhero thing. Sometimes, they're like being a superhero, you have to shut off or not tell people around you because things can get escalated and all that stuff. And I don't know. I think the recent slate discourse around it can be a little bit more thoughtful about like why it is that superheroes have secret identities in the first place. But neither here nor there.
Right. Okay, so also within the bonding and the whole drag race that they get into, Clev comes back. Clev, who's making the rounds. He was he was the do flip Spider-Man guy in Homecoming, and he was on the bus in Shang-Chi, and now we brought him back. He's making the rounds.
Yeah, it's so fun to have him as like a background supporting character.
Yeah,
especially with Zach Cherry, the actor. I don't know if he's making it big, but him being on Severance, a show that's like super popular right now. For anyone who's not watching Severance, please do. It's getting really popular. However, you can get Apple TV to work for anyone, especially Tiki. Just watch the show. That's all right. So moving on.
Yeah. Anyway, also I love the Beetlejuice correction from Clev. The whole I think you mean Lydia.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And later on, like in the car, like like the drag racer's like, stupid Lydia. Like he actually heard the criticism. I love that.
Yeah,
it's funny. Anyway, okay, so Dre, tries helping Lonnie via Pearl, which then leads to again this genius thing in the episode. Okay, so Pearl is the worst possible place she could be right now. She's at the 110 trying to get Lonnie out of there. She's horrified to see Lonnie with guns. They're getting ready to take on the Scorpion gang. This is interrupted by the Scorpion, who's been outfitted by Doc Ock. And again, this man, I tell you, I have one gripe in this episode, but it's very minor, only because we do it even better by 9. So we have Matt Gargan in the MCU proper. This is like everything. It's a crying shame we couldn't get Michael Mandow to voice him here, but the point being, he's very much modeled after what if we took that character and allowed him to be fully realized as the Scorpion he was always meant to be, which is kind of this great fusion of Ultimate and the 60s version of the Scorpion, which I thought was really cool. Mm-hmm. My one gripe is that he really should have had, I think he should have had the helmet on in this episode, only for the practical reason of, I don't know how he controls that tail without the helmet. I mean, how do you think he does it? Like, is he moving his arms when the tail's doing stuff or no?
I assume the tail just kind of is, like, I feel like the chest plate is how he's like, with how he's moving his body is probably where the tail.
So literally, just he's moving his chest, and that moves. That's where you.
Or is it? Or is maybe it's kind of like the Doc Ock thing in Spider-Man 2, where there's like a spinal cord thing.
Well, that's I mean, that's the only logical thing we can do if he can control without the helmet on. It's either it's moving of the chest or it's like linked into the spine somehow. Those are the only ones that make sense.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, it's a minor quibble. But I'm just saying, the point being though, he looks awesome. I love how it functions. I just love him has the classic Scorpion look, and he's dangerous, and it's a building off of what we saw in the movie. Because also, here's the thing with the Ultimate Scorpion I never realized. He has a damaged eye, and we saw that in Homecoming, and I never realized that, okay, he literally has like them damaging his eye in Homecoming was a nod to him having like the different colored eye.
Oh, I didn't know
he has here. So that I didn't know. I think it's essentially a deep cut to Ultimate.
That's cool.
So that's why we do that's why we have like the damage die in Homecoming. Anyway, so it's really cool to see him fully realized and really menacing and doing this thing. So Scorpion is a nice warm up and for plus the Scorpion makes so much sense. I'm sorry, I'm geeking out about Scorpion because frankly, Scorpion's always been like an underrated Spider-Man villain. I really like, because we don't do Scorpion enough.
Do we not? I feel like Scorpion is a pretty common Spider-Man villain to show up in a lot of things.
You'd think, but seriously though, and
okay, no. So let's look at it this way. So like he's in the comics, obviously,
but I don't think he's often in the comics as you think, Rohith. That's my point.
I mean, like Matt Gargan was part of the Dark Avengers.
No, Matt Gargan. I mean the Scorpion though.
Okay, I guess Scorpion. I can't
like since then. I mean, maybe an occasional bone they throw in. Usually, when we throw him a bone, it's like on the Sinister Six, and many times we restructure the Sinister Six, and not even then.
Yeah, because now I think about it, when like the Brand New Day, like status quo, when there was like certain arcs focusing on villains, like the Gauntlet, whatever, there wasn't any specific like stories focusing on Scorpion.
So that's my point.
No, that's fair. He isn't a character that's necessarily like a focus of a story arc.
Because I mean, I love the take on Scorpion in the animated series, and that was always my go-to for him. And think about it, since then we really, I mean, thankfully he showed up in the Insomniac games, but that's what I'm saying. Short of that, we rarely see the Scorpion, and I guess why I was so excited to see him in Homecoming, because we would get something like this. And honestly, the reason I like the Scorpion is fundamentally it's the animology thing that they were doing in the creation of Spider-Man films, where natural prey of the Scorpion is the spider.
Mm-hmm.
Natural predator of the spider is the Scorpion. Like that was like the coolest thing about the Scorpion. Anyway, so doing that, making him kind of the street level thing where he's part of he's part of the I think in the comics it was the cartel. Here I just think it's kind of like a Latinx kind of like gang in the city. Mm-hmm. Really cool idea, and it was just seeing him like basically we're escalating a gang war, with technology. It's very much what Spider-Man's kind of trying to prevent. He's very menacing, and also big shock moment in this episode. We have gunfire, we have people dying, and we have blood and impalement. So this is like everything that we could never do in 90s Spider-Man all in one episode.
Yeah, I was shocked.
God, I know, and the fact this is on Disney too. That's oh my God, yes.
I guess with what happened in episode 5 with Genosha and all that, I think probably Disney Plus animation has a little bit more leeway. I guess I feel like streaming probably there is a little bit more leeway in terms of what you can depict, because there was blood displayed in X-Men 97, so maybe streaming can give away a little bit more than like regular.
It wasn't gratuitous. It was blood that made sense.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, yes. God, it's point being, so that was like, it was like, this is what I mean. Everyone really took notice because of the shock value of that. But then people started realizing, oh man, there's actually a really good show here. Let's go back to it.
Yeah.
So Spider-Man wraps things up until the Scorpion pushes things, and this is a wonderful kind of I usually use the analogy it's a matchstick moment from a Pixar film, which it's the subversion. It's a thing where you think we've done what the plot says we need to do or we need to achieve, and then something goes awry.
Mm-hmm.
Where Spider-Man has things wrapped up. Norman, he's dead set on finding Dr. Octavius. And Scorpion then gets back up, and he's taken the earpiece out. So he's been this is where we're getting into the whole apology thing, which is going to be, I'll talk about in the next episode. But it's the fact Norman Osborn's made a very clear mistake here, just completely abandoning Spider-Man, taking the earpiece off for his hunt on Doc Ock. And just Scorpion pushing things, so he has like the gamma radiation burns, which was like a warning of like the danger of these weapons. Felt like a nod to 90s Spider-Man, where the idea that he kind of mutated because he pushed things a little, he kind of pushed the suit more.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, it was like he went to like I knew he went to like the facility, the nuclear power plant, or like he went to like one of the facility power plants just in general, and that happened to him. But anyway, so so that's great. The suit gets pierced. He ends up impaling Spider-Man, and Norman he then kind of bails him out using the glider, which was awesome.
Yeah, I was pumped seeing that. Especially, it's not the 100% the glider of the comics, but it's the close
prototype.
Yeah, and the green color was like, ooh, that's something right
This is
there.
the fact that again it just shows you again there's that question of how, and again I love that we're seeing it in the characterization where Norman could be doing better right now. He's kind of drifting. He's not doing anything malicious here, but still he's he's not the guy Spider. It's just he like fundamentally Green Goblin Spider Man do not make the best mixture, and we're kind of seeing that. And then the Goblin Glider shows up. It's like
Mhm.
Spider Man half dead. He's even got like the damaged eye, kind of like the Raimi film had. It's kind of I don't know. It's the fact that Spider Man gets there's an impalement, and there's a glider, but not the two are not necessarily related.
Yeah.
Anyway, that brings us to episode 8, Tangled Web. This is very much an aftermath episode. Scorpion battle aftermath. Um, the consequences of season 1, essentially. Norman Osborn is he's kind of in the Tony Stark position in Homecoming after the ferry, where it's he's self-evaluating, uh, being sorry, it's basically it's himself. It's kind of self-evaluating being Spider-Man. It's kind of what Peter's doing here. After it's kind of like the Tony Stark thing of like if you're nothing without that suit, then you shouldn't have it. It's not exactly the same conversation, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is what I love here. Okay, I love It feels like Norman Osborn's giving him bad advice, but unintentionally. But by the same token, though, he is absolutely. I feel he's absolutely gaslighting him to avoid admitting his own mistake. Where Norman Osborn, he's there again. His whole purpose in like doing the dude behind the desk thing with Spider-Man is he's supposed to have his back, and he didn't have his back, and he's at no point in this episode does he apologize for letting him get in harm's way or letting this happen, or like taking his eye off the ball for for Norman Osborn's pursuit of Doc Ock. He's not doing any of it. He's not taking again emphasis on the word here. He's not taking responsibility,
Yeah.
which I just love that fundamentally his character. Which again is kind of the whole like don't apologize. I never do from Spectacular.
Yeah.
And again, these are the kind of tactics that allowed Norman Osborn to succeed in business, but again, also make him a shady mentor, or a flawed mentor, more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we have a really sweet Aunt May scene afterwards, where she's concerned over the wounds and everything, and she's very much like I love that she knows okay this didn't happen during skateboarding. She's no fool. May's on the ball.
Oh yeah.
Yep. You want to take us through the Doc Ock arrest scene?
Man, it's just Doc Ock just having basically like a Broadway number as he's just laying waste to not really like killing, but greatly maiming whatever cops come his way, and just the sheer like pizzazz is so different from what I imagine Doc Ock to kind of put. I feel like Doc is always kind of the demure, very focused, disciplined, and in this, like Doc Ock is just kind of having a blast as she's just going through, NYPD.
From the moment, I forget if it was I forget whoever did this first because I don't think it was Ramita, but whoever did this first, whoever the genius was who came up with the idea of Doc Ock, holding the cigar and like doing like multiple things with the arms.
Mm-hmm.
Doc Ock, the reason Doc Ock is like debatably the arch nemesis, or at the very least the most popular of the Spider-Man villains, barring a Venom. Venom's a whole different ball of wax. But in terms of like who the classic Spider-Man villain is, or like, who could even rival Venom, Doc Ock has style, man. He just looks cool. He can embody cool, even without the arms. He's we're channeling this with him. He's got flair and intelligence on his side. And we're seeing the menace of how smart Doc Ock is, and also as how again, it's almost like it's kind of reverse Flash esque in a sense. Like there's such a cruelty and just an unapologetic cruelty to what he's doing too. Just like he's got all these contingencies ready for like an escape plan. He thought this out. He's grabbing the money with to a samba essentially. He's
Yeah.
oh, it's just great. And then ultimately Iron Man takes him in. It's a great moment. It also feels it's a nod to the Avengers, to Rest of Loki scene too, which is just great. All right, so Peter, he helps Pearl study, and he tries talking Lonnie out of the gang life, and unfortunately, unless he's wearing a costume, that's not going to work. Well, it
Oh,
wouldn't have worked even in the costume, but still.
mm-hmm.
Let's see. Okay, so we get the line for Norman here, which is great power comes great respect.
And that line was like, ooh, they really know how to characterize Norman as being very distinct from Uncle Ben.
Yep.
Also,
Love it.
that's a really rich person's way of describing the utility of power.
Absolutely. I love they had respect for Uncle Ben. The whole "no one's tougher than New Yorkers" line. That's a great Ben line to have, and the fact that he respects that, but he's taking the wrong message away from it.
It's a very Ben Grimm line.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see. The chameleon again, who's in costume, again to protect his identity, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
He steers the 110 to Octavius, the Doctor Octavius, who's now having all of his stuff confiscated, so it's ripe for the pickings. So we kind of set that up. Harry, meanwhile, he's on Peter's side here, and he backs him with the original suit design. You're Spider-Man after all, and he makes that great. It's a great line that Harry has, and this is a really great moment of development for Harry, where he points out to him that, look, I mean, my father, I think he means well with this, but by the same token, though, I mean, look, he's not out there. You're Spider-Man. This is your decision to make, and that's kind of the reminder to Peter this whole season that, look, don't let Osborn steamroll you. If he's true his word and what he said in the original there in the original like proposal of this team up, he's in service of you. You're calling the shot, so he doesn't get a say.
And I really appreciated Harry Osborn being like that because that's really typically Harry Osborn is more subservient or deferential to his father and wanting to get his
Mm-hmm.
approval. And appreciating this, like Harry Osborn thinks for himself and values his friend Peter without necessarily having to like go against his dad, like in a rebel kind of a sense.
Yeah, that brings episode 9, possibly the best episode, possibly Hero or Menace. So opens so strong. Norman visiting Octavius to gloat, and it's the eternal rivalry at play. Just this wonderful petty scene shows the sinister side of Norman Osborn at work here, and Octavius. Oh boy, he has Norman's number. He points out that you just take credit for other people's work, which we know for a fact is essentially what he's doing with Spider-Man here this whole season. Again, he's profiting. He's a guy hiding in the shadows, taking all the credit and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, you got to take with a grain of salt. But by the same token, I mean, there's a lot of truth in what Octavius is saying here. He's got an ego, but it doesn't mean he's wrong.
Oh, and it's what's especially cool about that whole thing is like Norman holding the phone with the napkin.
Yes, I loved it. Just again the elitism, and again the fact that again there's the businessman and the scientist, and the fact that clearly Spider-Man Peter Parker he's leaning more on the side of the scientist, so it's kind of it is interesting. And again, he's absolutely right. Norman's all about the branding here, exactly what he did with Spider-Man, and what really upsets Octavius is that Norman has stolen his technology and set him up. Set him up with everything here, just like basically set him up to fail to be arrested by Iron Man. It's just he just calls the fact that he calls Norman Osborn parasite a little bit of foreshadow for the end of the season maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's great. So it's just a fantastic scene. Meanwhile, the 110 they try and heist the confiscated Octavius Infinity Tech. Spider-Man saves Nico, much like he did in the first episode, and she's finally on board with things. Very full circle, being her being the first save technically. Um, Look, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. I'm just going to say, in my heart of hearts, maybe more effective if it were a young Jessica Jones having that moment with him, but that's just me being a fanboy. Plot wise, works great. Full Spider-Man costume looks awesome. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was well worth the wait.
Mm-hmm.
Again, love the conflict on Lonnie being there, where like Spider-Man's like he's about to web him up, he just kind of hesitates. Lonnie, what are you doing here? It's just like Spider-Man, you don't understand. Then we have like the interruption with the Scorpion gang brawl. It's a huge brawl. Donovan, he's outclassed and he bounces. It's just this. Oh my! I was really shocked. Like he was completely abandoned. Then I realized, oh my god, that makes all the sense in the world. Tombstone's gonna usurp the power right there. It's just beautifully staged.
Yeah, and God, the moment when Peter is side by side with Lonnie
Mm-hmm.
as they go up against Mac, and like the paneling layout where it's like split half of his face Lonnie, half of his face Peter. It's like, oh, that's the good use of comic book, paneling for a show like this.
But by the way, this show we didn't mention it all real quick because I know Jacob would want us to mention this. The whole the comic panel thing that we did throughout the show, like we didn't just do this. We did a lot of it here, but throughout the show subtly. Because again, honestly, I had this thing where I was so sucked into the show, I kind of forgot noticing it at certain points because I'm just kind of used to it. But we had like kind of panel moments throughout the show. Looked good.
What do you mean by that?
Well, no, I mean like we did like a lot of moments, like kind of like we did during the action scene, where we would kind of like turn in the comic panels like on the screen,
Yeah,
like that, like literal paneling. Like we would just like have it appear, but sometimes I was so sucked in, I kind of didn't notice it until like it would be really apparent, like in these last two episodes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, so really nice, nice kind of team up battle there. Again, I love that I like that we're progressively doing the Tombstone thing. So he hits hit with the gas in the truck, looking for a weapon to help turn the tide, and he becomes essentially he gets the strength and vulnerability of Tombstone, which right now, before he becomes horribly disfigured, Tombstone a lot of parallels to Luke Cage in terms of the power set.
Yeah, I can see that.
He's pretty much invulnerable. Yeah, I don't know how bulletproof per se, but at the very least, he's got he's got pretty durable, if not impenetrable, skin like Luke Cage.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of cool. Anyway, so Spider-Man versus Scorpion, round two. Now he's got the mask. It looks awesome. The '60s version. Oh man, it's fantastic. We have their team up battle here. It's going great. Then we have Scorpion getting really nasty. He's threatening to unmask Spider-Man, kill all his loved ones, and this makes Peter contemplate Norman Osborn's his moment there. Great great power comes with great power comes great respect, and he almost does kind of the glider moment from No Way Home, and we thank goodness Lonnie stops him and reminds him of his ethics. Reminds him it's more so responsibility without spelling it out.
I've seen someone criticize it's like that moment specifically that they wish that Peter was the one to come to that realization rather than like Lonnie coming in. And I can understand in one respect that like, hey, like Peter needs to kind of be able to develop his sense of morality on his own and be able to impose his own limits. But I think having others step in is reflective of the fact that Peter, as much as Spider-Man can be a hero on his own, I mean, one of his monikers is being the friendly neighbor to Spider-Man. And so people like Lonnie, even though Lonnie's like part of a criminal gang, still being able to kind of like remind Spider-Man who he is and what the inspiration was, I think will be a scene that's going to hit harder with how far Lonnie goes into becoming the Tombstone we know. And yeah, I think those were the last good moments with Lonnie as we know him. And depending on how things go next season, that
Boy.
this was the best of Lonnie, and he prevented Spider-Man from becoming a menace because he's the one that's going to become the menace next season.
Absolutely. Then Peter's on the phone with Norman, and again, like the idea that Norman kind of ultimately he respects Spider-Man's ethics and that he found a way back, which is what's important. And then we reveal all the while he stole Spider-Man's blood.
Yeah.
Again, in his mind, for a noble purpose of like if I had 1,000 Spider-Men, the world could be a safe place. But by the same token, he did that without Spider-Man's knowledge, and it's very shady. But we'll get there in the last episode. If this be my destiny. ... So yeah, this was a mind-bending payoff episode. I feel because it's like a thing where 9 is like that's a season finale right there, and they could have technically ended it there with like the cliffhanger, like oh god, Norman's got the blood. But no, we went the extra mile here. We went really full circle, and it's a big moment of becoming for Spider-Man, literally. So we reveal, I guess overall, so we reveal Norman Osborn's, after we have like the whole science project opener, which is cute. We reveal that Norman Osborn's big shady project that Daredevil tried to warn us about is he's using the interns' projects, using all the interns' projects, elements of their projects, to do his version of the Tesseract. Basically, do kind of like a kind of a Stargate doorway, for his astronauts. Basically a combination of the Tesseract and the Bifrost is basically a big old Stargate that people can kind of walk through and go to space rather easily.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, trying to put the Fantastic Four out of business.
No, it gives me vibes to. You remember going through the like Oscorp exhibit in Spider-Man Miles Morales, the flashback, and there's like this a section on space travel and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of. I wonder if like they were probably inspired. Like, oh, what if Norman Osborn did get some investment into going to space and whatnot? And especially in light of the current situation in the country, space travel being so commercialized, someone like Norman Osborn would definitely be wanting to be on the cutting edge of that particular industry.
Yeah, I did not think about that reference, but that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so our twist really wowed me, and I was really shocked in a really cool way here. So the twist of Doctor Strange shows up, warning them about using this device, and I was like on the edge of my seat. Wait a minute, the fact that Doctor Strange is going like, wait, I don't know who you're. Initially, I thought it was going to go in the direction of the Doctor Strange that we saw in the episode 1 was from a different universe, but what they did with it was 10 times better than that.
Oh yeah.
So Doctor Strange shows up. He warns, like don't mess with these the powers that you're messing with here beyond comprehension, et cetera, et cetera. Norman Osborn doubts this because of the school fight from earlier, which again, Peter was there, we the audience were there, we know this. Having Doctor Strange, he has no idea what anyone's talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, Norman Osborn, he jumps the gun. He's just like denouncing again. Norman Osborn refusing to apologize or even contemplate this like a moment of just like, wait a minute, what if Peters has an excellent point? Like, maybe we should listen to the to the Magic Doctor. Maybe we should at least give him this guy. He seems to have a point.
Mm-hmm.
So he enacts basically uses like the Hulk prevention tech on on Doctor Strange, and we enact the which is very interesting. We have those sonic weapons, given the character we might be alluding to, by the way. In hindsight, they probably should have used those devices during the scene, but they didn't know.
Yeah.
We portaled to a planet, not just any planet. We portaled to the planet of the symbiotes.
Clintar, for those in the know.
Yes. Anyway, so then we have oh boy, it's just this heady awesome reveal. So Doctor Strange, we have a great team up fight with the Ditko boys, the sons of Ditko.
Oh yeah, and their dynamic is really cool. It's always fun to see Strange and Spidey interact, not only because of the dick connections, but also they're just kind of the quirkier side of the superhero corner of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, plus they make the same hand shape.
Yeah.
So it's always like a fun little kind of cute thing. They both do the Ditko hands. But yeah, so the fact that we go into the fight from episode 1, so the realization is, I'm thinking, is that where they're going with it? And then the moment that portal opened up, I was like, my jaw dropped to the floor in like the most excited way. Like, oh my god, it's like we grandfather paradoxed them.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I was beside myself that, oh my god, Doctor Strange, more so Spider-Man invented himself, and like what we're saying here in the grand scope of things, that Spider-Man's destiny across, it's kind of the whole Spider-Verse thing, but it's kind of like Spider-Man's destiny across the multiverse is that he is the lifeblood of Marvel. Is essentially, in a sense, it's kind of like Spider-Man's the lifeblood of the company, so he has to kind of create himself in a sense here. So literally, Spider-Man inspires Norman Osborn to inject the spider that bites him, and Doctor Strange makes it happen. So Steve Ditko and Spider-Man, the character himself, is his creation point. That's really fantastic.
All in a tangled web.
God, I loved it. just the fact that Doctor Strange kind of created him is it's a cool alternate idea for the beginnings of Spider-Man. It's not like he literally created him. It's just he branched it into being.
It's not like the whole Spider-Man spider totem thing, but it is that kind of like taking something that was an accident and almost making it seem like fate, was came upon Peter and made him Spider-Man.
Exactly, and I thought that was such an inspiring. So many times we tout that line of like, oh, it was fate, but no, literally, we see it before our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see a grandfather. Time travel in general is kind of hard to do, but let's just say a paradox like
Mm-hmm.
that, it's even harder to do. And the fact that it makes sense,
Yeah.
you know. Anyway, so we have some cool team up battles going on here, and Norman Osborn he feels bad for creating all this chaos because of his ego, because of like, no, I'm not gonna let a sorcerer with a cool mustache tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, then we shut it down, kind of like Spider-Man 2 with a Doc Ock's device, which I really liked. And the end result is, our trio, they create a Web Worldwide Engineering Brigade, which I thought was really cute.
Which is named after the, same
Mhm.
same area as Adventures Campus, which I didn't know about until someone mentioned that to me online, and it's like, oh, it's cool to take. The show really takes a lot of components from all over the Spider Mythos and making it its own. And I'm really curious to see where things go for Peter, Harry, and Nico, especially depending upon like who comes and joins the web.
Oh yeah. So let's see. So before we kind of round off, where we leave everyone, rapid fire here. Just Doctor Strange and Spider Man. They have a really nice moment. The whole. I don't know. It's really nice, kind of like a moment of acknowledging the fate. You're really wise. You're wise for your age, and we have the moment of like, "What's your name?" And I love this. That Doctor Strange he has a line that basically is not. He knows exactly who he is. Aside from the obvious Peter, but yeah, beyond that, it was good save, kid. The first thing he ever said to him.
Yeah.
Which is really classy. I don't know. I just like that, and the whole like he's a little tease of the futures that whatever's going to happen, I think you're ready for it. And we see the Watcher, possibly a hint at Secret Wars. It's possible, but
Mhm.
regardless, all of our web kind of emails that went out. So we have Daredevil and his person on the inside, who was Jean, aka Finesse. So Finesse was his Daredevil sidekick in this alternate universe.
Yep.
Yep. We got let's see. So Amadeus Cho, he's still with Oscorp. He kind of moved up the ladder.
Mhm.
Everyone's pretty much on board for Webb. Ned Leeds was on the list,
Yeah.
and again, so there's let's see.
So is Max Dillon.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Then Norman Osborn has the symbiote. That's a big deal. So he's got the symbiote, and we'll see where he's gonna go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Nico's mom, we kind of teed up, hello mom. So you got that, and I guess lastly, Lonnie Lincoln. He's at again. He's going to be at Webb. He accepted the invite again. Potentially could be on the path of being a Norman Osborn, which could lead to kind of being kind of a spectacular level of Tombstone, who may or may not be in conflict with the Kingpin.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep. So that's what I'm really. We have to see Lonnie Lincoln bump up against the Kingpin, even if he's just enterprising or starting out. He's going to go up against the Pro. He's going to go up against the.
So you heard that Jeff Tamrell, the showrunner, said that hey, Kingpin's showing up in the
Yeah,
Your Friendly
they
Neighborhood.
confirmed Vincent D'Onofrio will be voicing the Kingpin in an update in one of the two seasons.
Man, I'm surprised I'm hearing about this now. I know that he's.
I don't know. They didn't specify, so that makes me think it's probably 3, but I don't. I'm just saying it's a guess.
Because I know that like it's been confirmed that like D'Onofrio Kingpin will reference Spider-Man and Daredevil Born.
I know they said that too. I know that, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's just kind of like because of that buzz, then it triggers that buzz. So it's like yes, but that's the thing. So D'Onofrio is like I read it somewhere that D'Onofrio was like showrunner. Someone confirmed that that D'Onofrio is going to be in the show. They didn't
Okay,
specify when.
that's cool. I'm
The fact that
really,
we already have Daredevil makes me hope sooner, but could be 3.
yeah.
Anyway, and the last thing, the most important thing we got to talk real quick before we go, Richard Parker.
Oh, yep. Oh man,
Did you notice who voiced Richard Parker?
it's Yuri Lowenthal. No, not Yuri. Josh Keaton. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, those two are the most prominent voices of Spider-Man.
I know. Look. We all love Yuri Lowenthal, but we also love Josh Keaton.
Yeah, Josh Keaton playing Richard Parker, and he's in jail. I'm very curious if him being in jail is because of what happened with Uncle Ben.
That is a good question. I have a feeling it might be because you have to remember, Peter has no idea that he thinks both his parents are dead. Well, then I guess to be fair, Peter said his mother died. He did not say his father died, but he implied that they both were gone. But he says,
"Oh man, are we going with the full-on CW Flash, where maybe Richard Parker is framed for the death of his wife?"
I don't know. All we know is May has to have a really good reason for visiting him. Now, she mentioned, the whole thing. She's worried that Peter doesn't have a mentor, but I think the ship has sailed on that. So I don't know why she's there. The real question is, why the heck is she visiting him now?
Well, no, it could be the times that she has to go out for errands. She's visiting Richard Parker.
Ah, there you go. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which is why she's so out. Was why she's so out late, right? Because she's going for errands and she doesn't come back for a while. So,
well, she said she was like working late too. So,
well, I mean, yeah, that's the
which again, probably working late, doing whatever she's doing, with Richard Parker.
Yeah, maybe she's trying to help clear his name.
It really sounds like though it was like a. I don't know. I don't think that's the case, right? Because when she showed up, it was like he was surprised that you look as lovely, and the conversation intimated that this is the first time he's seeing her.
Probably in a while. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think so. I think it's like something big's going on. I don't know what yet.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so folks, we could speculate all the live long day here, but overall, I think it's safe to say we were really feeling season 1 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. We're looking forward to more of it. Mm-hmm. And it was a fun ride for sure. It was a fun ride, and the way they released it was really good too. They got multiple episodes at a time. I think it was done mostly to not crowd Daredevil, but I'm not complaining. I don't know. It's good to have Spider-Man and Daredevil in tandem. Frankly, in a just world, we would be able to do this. And hey, we got another season of this coming. Maybe we know they're filming Daredevil season 2. Who knows? Maybe it could be a new tradition. Fingers crossed. I don't know.
Yeah, depending upon. I think with animation, there's just a little bit more flexibility with not having traditional weekly release schedules. And I think the fact that the show was greenlit for seasons 2 and 3, it's like. At least thankfully the release schedule didn't hamper people's watching the show week to week.
Yeah. All right, so I want to thank the folks that tuned in, like Code Geass Anime Fan. We had Jacob running things, and of course Rohith Dar for sitting right there.
Glad to be sitting.
Yeah. See, he's not the dude at the desk. He's the guy in the chair.
Right. I'm more the gentleman at the ottoman.
Are you on an ottoman right now?
No.
Okay. Speaking of ottoman, also Doc Ock, we intimated the arms. You saw him sketching them on the wall. Good visual. Just gonna throw that out there. Okay. That'll do it for us tonight as we holster our remotes till the next installment calls for the draw. Mano a mano, just Plus&Us.
Mm-hmm.